SmokehouseStudios.net. The in-studio broadcast feed is now live.
Warning. This show is about the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you are easily offended by the truth, then you need to keep listening. His return is drawing near.
SmokehouseStudios.net. The Front Porch Show. A unique blend of current events and what they might mean. Humbly seen through the eyes of God's Word, the Bible, in an old school front porch discussion with occasional guests, your input, and a guiding hand through Christ. Broadcasting from atop the front porch, it's SmokehouseStudios.net's The Front Porch Show. Now, carefully blending more smoke goodness in each and every soundbite, your host, Smokehouse.
Well, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, friends, wherever you may be across the globe and across the United States. Oh, Smokehouse with you here, SmokehouseStudios.net, October the 2nd. 2021. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We've got new information from Brother Mike, and we'll get into that later. We may go an hour, we may go an hour and a half before we get to Mike, just to give you some ideas, because I am so excited. Matter of fact, I'm elated. People that have been listening to this program for many years, they have always asked me, who is the man that does the intro to your show? And he's been a friend, he's been a mentor, he has been very giving through the years, not only to me but everybody. Has a full career in broadcasting and has kind of taken me under his wing, and here he is tonight to be with us on the Front Porch Show. Brother Pat, how are you doing, man?
Hi, everybody. Wait a minute, I'm not sounding like I did before. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm broadcasting live high atop one of Central Florida's future sinkholes, and doing fine. Thank you.
Well, that's what I heard. A matter of fact, in Mike's new interview, he does talk about a lot of sinkholes is coming. So, you may have said something prophetic there. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, I better learn to swim.
Well, I think you better if you don't know how to already. All right, Paul. See, I'm so used to having Paul on. Forgive me for calling you.
It's okay.
I get the P's mixed up.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, very good. Well, oh no, are you still there? Oh no. Okay. Well, folks, you are still listening live. I can tell. Y'all are listening live, man. This is something else. We have just had a major crash to the computer, and we're going to have to do something. Hang on just a second. Computer just crashed. Let me tell my guest. I'll have to reboot. All right. If you're listening to me live, just hang in there. We're probably going to have to come back at, say, 6:30, but just stay live with me. Stay live with me until we can figure something out. The main computer that runs everything. I know I'm still broadcasting live here. All right. Now, let me tell another guest. Whew. It has just crashed. I tell you what we'll do. Y'all just stay listening live, and I'll just reboot this computer, and y'all can hear the process in the background as I go. And what I will do is try to edit, but anyway, just hang tight. And I'll let you know something. All right. Okay. All right. So anyway, how's everybody doing? Welcome to my world. Here it's interesting because what Mike has got to talk about tonight, folks, is exactly that. It's about these gamma rays that's going to be causing computer issues, and we may have just had a gamma ray blast in here. So who knows, man? All right, rebooting. I'm telling my guest, we're rebooting. Let you know when to call back in. All right. So anyway, folks, I hope y'all are doing well. We're 5 minutes into the show, and I don't know how many of you have ever experienced a blue screen era where the blue screen just comes up on the computer and turns itself off, and that's what it's doing. It's rebooting. See, what happened was on Windows 10, you cannot turn off the Windows Update. Whatever you try to do, you cannot turn it off at all. And so we got an update. Pat and I were talking right before the show, and we got an update that said the computer needed to update, and it said, do you want to do it now or do it later? And I chose do it later. So I think what has just happened, I think it has just updated on its own. It's coming back up, though. I hope everybody's doing well. I wish I had a way to communicate with y'all, or for y'all to communicate back to me. Let's see, we burned up 6 minutes. Maybe I can get this back up and running within 10 minutes, and then we can. Okay, I got your pictures there, Jamie, but I can't look at them right now. I'm in a bind here. All right, it's coming back up. Alrighty. Okay, it's coming back up. We're going to be talking about Revelations 18 tonight. We're going to be talking about the spending bill. We're going to talk about the Euphrates River drying up. And we're going to be talking about all kind of things. And we're going to have a good show. And Pat is going to be a great guest. Let me tell him computer is coming back up. Computer is back up. Let you know when to call in. And this is God's show. Maybe there was a glitch in this computer that he needed taken care of before we got into the show, because he wanted his word to get out. So we will take that. We will take that 8 minutes into the show. Okay, not too bad. All right, let me tell my other guest. Here. Okay. All righty. See, I would improvise by sharing a Bible verse or something, but I can't, because I've got a lot of stuff to open up once this computer gets up and running. Well, I hope you updated Windows 10. Let me see if it did. Yep, it sure did. That's exactly what it did. That is exactly what it did. It updated on its own. Perfect timing, isn't it? I've watched YouTube videos on how to get in there and turn off the updates, and you can't. You can't. It'll just do it on its own. But, there's ways that you can kind of slow it down or stifle it, but you cannot turn it off like you can other operating systems or the Windows of the past. So probably what I will do is, I don't know, I may let the show run just like it is, because getting in there and trying to edit out all the beginning, it's going to be rough. Be hard to do. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. But there you have it. Okay, it's coming back up. I tell you what, let's do. Let's at least get our phone system back up and get our guests back on. That way we can let Rocky kind of, that's his nickname, is Rocky. That's what I call him. But we can let old Rock carry us through while I am setting everything else back up. He can tell you some jokes or something. See, the main computer that houses everything, the articles, the audio clips, the phone system, and everything is what crashed. Well, it didn't crash. It just updated on its own. And
there are 2 participants in the conference.
Here we
Q&A
go.
session has started.
All right. Let's see now. Okay, Brother Pat, have we got you in here, brother?
Oh yeah, I'm there.
Hey, hey, man.
I'm somewhere.
You know what ended up happening, man?
What?
You remember when we got that update that my computer was ready to update before?
Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up updating without my permission. That's what happened.
Gotta love it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Gates.
yeah. He did that on purpose.
He did.
Yeah. Okay.
He vaccinated you.
Is that what it is? I got vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have got, before we get into your bio, you've got a 30-plus career of radio, so this shouldn't be a problem with you. I'll need you to tell some jokes or carry on something until I can get the rest of this stuff set up there.
Are we rolling here?
Yeah. Well, see, the stream that I stream live to is on a separate computer, and that computer's fine. So I've been live the whole time telling my listeners, give me a minute while I get the main one up. So, yeah, we're still live. So, yeah, go ahead. I got to get the other pages set up. So just take off. Show's yours.
I certainly will. You wanted me to give some background on who I am or was. And it's been 19 years since I've been on the air at WJMK in Chicago. And I spent 25 years on the air, plus or minus, in the Chicagoland area, but about 20 years of it at WJMK, which was an FM oldies station where I was a man of many hats. I was on the air, had my own show. One time I was a production director. At one time I was assisting with programming. I was kind of like the utility guy on the ball team with a bunch of star players. We had some Hall of Fame Chicago broadcasters that I was working with that I would listen to when I was a kid. See, and they're all from this generation that I would listen to, and I was accepted by them, and I did the all-night show, and that blew my mind because they just accepted me. Because I used to sneak the radio in under the pillow and listen to it at night and during the day and stuff. I was an only child, so I listened to a lot of radio, and this is what I wanted to do. And how better to do it than at that place? So they had an AM station down the hall, and it was WJJD, and another Hall of Fame guy, Clark Weber, did the morning show, and Reese Rickards did news, and I did sports. So I was the sports director in Morning Drive while I did the overnight show. So I was doing two things at once. And so we did that for a while. And there was always stuff to do at the station. It was, when they say, if you do what you like to do, if you do what you love to do for a living, you will never, ever work a day in your life. And it never felt like work. I could be there 10, 12, 14 hours, and it just would not feel like work. I'd get in trouble for being at the radio station too long, because it's just where I wanted to be. It was just fascinating, just a fascinating place, fascinating people, and just a wide scope of different kinds of people out there. I was married at the time, and we did commercials. We would go out and sell the commercials to car dealerships, and what else did we do? We did it's not a museum, but along the same lines of a public place. But they advertised, and they wanted us to write, produce, and voice their commercials, and so we would do that for them for extra money. And the reason they would pay extra money for us is because usually the salespeople at radio stations would write copy as fast as they could so they could get back out on the streets and sell all they could, because there was always a lot of pressure to sell. We didn't have that pressure. So we had the time to sit and craft and cultivate and spend a little time with the client and let them know where they should go, and then try to take care of their needs. And how does this sound? You need this? No, I want it to sound a little different. Okay, we'll do that. We'll call them back and do it. Okay, we're ready. And we send it out to and back in the days of reel-to-reel tape, imagine that, reel-to-reel tape. And we would send them out on little 5-inch reel-to-reel tape to the stations in Chicago, and I'd walk them in. There you go. I'm the production director, and that was it. And so that's how they got their commercials from us that we did. And then I set up a studio at home, and we were working on that, and then the marriage fell apart. And that's an awful thing, but it happens. Not something I really wanted, but that happens. And so that side business went away. We just didn't do it. So I was just scraping for things to do on top of working, and I made pretty decent money. So I was on top of working my show, or doing production, or doing both. And that's how that came to be. And I did that for 20 years, and almost wound up as program director, and that didn't happen. It's kind of a shame, but I think I know why that is now. It's just I wanted to. There's a difference if you listen to radio, or you read the newspapers or TV, even radio or TV, you'll notice that their salespeople, or you don't notice, their salespeople are beaten over the head every day to sell more than they possibly can. Get out there and sell, because we need to make money. And then you got the people who are their bosses hiring people in programming and people on the air saying, you need to do a little something different. Oh, no, you need to do this. So we have like 18 cooks trying to spoil the broth. And it was horrible to see. So I wanted to get rid of that and just simplify it. And we hired Hall of Fame guys. And so I thought, what the heck? We hired, for instance, John Records Landecker. Let him be John Records Landecker. Let him be. We hired him. We didn't hire him to be somebody else. Let him do what he does. Guys in the Hall of Fame. Dick Biondi, same way. And I could go on down the list. So maybe you know these guys, maybe you don't. But that's how I made a living. And so there you go. Did I burn enough time?
You did great. I had just opened up the last window that I needed, and that was a great bio, man. If I had a little hand clap sound effect, I'd play it, but I'm afraid to go.
I don't. I really didn't want to get into it, but got to fill time with something. So there you go. That's what you do.
Well, that's right. And messages are coming in. People, thank y'all for hanging with us. And we are back to you now, fully ready to go. So, Paul, see, I just about did it again. Just about called you Paul.
Well, you can call me Paul if you like.
Okay. The title of tonight's show is titled Economic Destruction, or The Economics of Destruction, I'm sorry. And I have to give credit to Pat. That was your idea. That was a good title because it matched everything we're going to be talking about. Now, if you're just joining us late, wanted to know what the catastrophe was, my computer updated right as the show started, but we're back rolling. The gentleman that's on the program that you had just heard is Brother Pat. He is the one that recorded the intro for this show that you hear every time we come on every Saturday night. And not only has he supplied that gift, but his gift of knowledge and his willingness to help out and to teach and to train. And then he's just been a blessing to the program. So, all right, Pat.
How many 20s do I owe you now?
Well, hang on. The show ain't over. I'm still tallying them up. I'll have to send you an invoice when we close.
I guess.
But I appreciate you filling in, man. This happens to me from time to time, but we're old school, so we get her back up. So, economics of destruction, Pat. What's on your mind, brother?
Well, are we going to, let me just ask you a little behind the scenes stuff. Are we going to go with where you were going, or are we going to go with this first?
No, we'll just go with what you have first.
All right. When you talk about the economics of destruction, you're wondering why things are the way they are today. And you say, well, that's because of the president, or that's because of the governor, or that's because of yada, yada, yada in politics. And you know what? It really, aside from a few politicians, it really isn't. It has nothing really to do with that. These people are owned. They are bought. So, and you're going to have to accept that, to accept the premise that I'm going to lay out here. I'm going to make the case for this. How do we get our products? How do we get them? Well, Smokehouse, he delivers the products. That's how we get them, right? He gets on the road, gets out, and that's how we get the products. And we get them from businesses. People are in business and make all kinds of things. They make things to eat, things to drive, things to engines, tires, rubber. Anything you can think of is something that a business made that you're buying because you need it or you want it. Okay? So where do they come from? They come from all over the world. It'd be nice if it all came from America, but it doesn't. Sometimes it comes from other parts of the world because we have to use the world as a farm team because we're told to by the people who have the money, the people who are owning us. There's a George Carlin routine, and I won't go into it because it's a little dark, but it's the world is a club, and we ain't in it.
That's right.
And that's basically what it is. There are investment companies. Who owns all these companies? Who owns? Who's the owner of all of these companies? Well, there are a ton of companies out there that have all different kinds of brands of stuff. You know, there's PepsiCo, and they've got soft drinks galore. They've got snacks. I think they own Kentucky Fried Chicken and Taco Bell, don't they? I mean, you know.
Yeah, they own it all.
And they've got, all kinds of brands. So you've got PepsiCo, and they're huge. These companies are huge.
BlackRock and Vanguard.
You got it. That's right. That's it. You bingo. You got Nestle, Coca-Cola, General Mills, Kellogg's, Mondelez, Mars, Danone, Unilever, Kraft Heinz, and on down the list. And it's all owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street Corporation, Berkshire Hathaway, Wellington Management, Northern Trust, Magellan Asset Management, J.P. Morgan Chase, Berkshire Hathaway, Bank of America, and on down the list. And they are major investors. These investment groups are major investors in these larger companies of smaller brands that are different companies. Okay, and you can look this up on Yahoo. You can go to Yahoo Finance, and you can look at the largest shareholders of these companies. They're all publicly traded, and you get to see who it is that owns the most and who's on top of the list. And it's always BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street, Berkshire Hathaway. And so how could that be? How could that be? And this goes to anything you could think of, just about anything you could think of. The people that probably, the people that made my cell phone that I'm talking to you on, there's investors there. People that made the Smokehouse's studio. There's the investors that invested in companies there. They're the same ones. The people that bring you this sound. And depending on what venue you're listening on, they are invested in as well by different companies. And so it's hard to get away from it. And George Carlin was right. It's you're not in this club, and you're not. There's also these foundations, the non-for-profit companies that run. Basically, there's Bill Gates, and they subsidize the World Health Organization. Okay, so that's going to be tainted if you know anything about Bill Gates, because he's talking about depopulation. And I don't want to get any farther into it than that, but you look that up and you can see that he's getting into some weird stuff. We talk about Open Societies is owned by George Soros, and you know that George Soros is pouring money into just wrecking America, and the Clinton Foundation as well. And those are the foundations where money can be laundered because it's non-for-profit.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, we've got Durham. John Durham. John Durham. He has he's released another indictment now. That's
today.
Or yesterday. It was Friday. He always. You had mentioned earlier what's going to happen on a Friday to keep the weekend tied up. Well, that's it. Durham has just dropped another indictment on the Clinton Foundation now. So where the left-wing media last week, when he did the first indictment on that one lawyer that was lying, making up stuff about Trump, and the media was playing it down. Oh, it's just one indictment. It's low fruit on the tree. It's nothing to worry about. And boom, yesterday, Durham now has dropped an indictment on the Clinton Foundation. So things are heating up when it comes to that. But you're right. These investment companies, they own everything, and also they control everything because money talks. And so when you own something and you say a command and it happens, and we have got containers that we covered last week that are sitting out on the ocean, and you said the number was up to 70 freighters now that's stuck out on the ocean?
Yeah, it was as of earlier this afternoon, and that's about the only news I wasn't even aware that the Clinton Foundation had been dropped on by Durham, but that's the only thing I did see was 70 freighters as of this afternoon were waiting to get into port.
Yeah, it just broke, and I didn't really have time to get all the information. That was my fault. But yeah, it's people that were tied to the Clinton Foundation that will lead to that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, okay.
And let me say one more thing.
Okay.
One more small thing. You're talking about all these companies, and you think, why there's competition? There is no competition. There's no competition. Why? Because these big guys are all investing in these other companies, telling them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no competition. They're all working together. And you're talking about the largest investors are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Of those three, and there's Berkshire Hathaway too. Of those three, the biggest one is Vanguard, and not BlackRock. It's Vanguard. And who owns BlackRock? Who invests in BlackRock? A large percentage of BlackRock is invested into by Vanguard. And we don't know who else. We don't know a lot of these. The way it's set up, we cannot know who some of these people are.
Yeah. Well,
how do you like them? They like them apples.
Well, it's the beast system. I mean, spiritually, we know who's in charge here, and who's pulling the strings.
Oh, sure.
Right. And so they can control things, and so they're trying to grind this nation to a halt. They're creating division because they know, and the Bible says that a house divided against itself can't stand. So they're creating a division, and they're forcing us into these draconian mandates. And the Supreme Court is nowhere to be found. Our Congress is utterly useless right now, and now they're shutting off our supplies to try to starve us into confirmation. Let me share a clip here real quick of the latest that is going on out here on our ports.
The problem is there's a number of weak links in the supply chain right now, Maria, and it's leading to delays. So if you're starting to see store shelves seem a little more empty, the reason is overwhelming demand is clogging up the ports. In fact, if you look at port delays, the time for ocean freight to get from door to door, the delays are up 43% this year compared to last. And then we're only seeing the ships that are in port. Here in Savannah, there are more than 20 ships moored off in the ocean waiting to get in to unload their containers. And in fact, off the West Coast, there are more than 60 ships waiting to unload their cargo. So hurting all of this process is that these containers will then be put on trains and trucks. Guess what? There is a delay in getting the trains loaded up because they're being overwhelmed, and there's a shortage of truck drivers. Put in place also the surge in demand from consumers, the surge in demand from businesses who are worried that the Delta variant could slow down or shut down production of their goods. And also, this is the peak shopping season. So really, all the planets have aligned, overwhelming the ports. And bottom line is scarcity leads to higher prices. So I think inflation is continuing to be a problem. Jay Powell, the Fed chair, just said that yesterday. But if you're going to shop for the holidays, my best suggestion to you is get your orders in early because these ports are working overtime.
Well, see, Pat, now I was running the roads back in 2008 when the last shutdown and shortage happened under, or actually 2009 under Obama. Well, 2008, 2009. And that was their excuse then, that there was a lack of truck drivers. And you would go into these truck stops and you couldn't find a parking spot because so many truck drivers were sitting there empty waiting on the load. The brokers were sitting there twiddling their fingers because no one was posting loads or calling the brokers to haul loads. And so the load boards were pretty dry. And that was their excuse back then. There's a shortage of truck drivers. In one aspect, there is a shortage of truck drivers because they're all sitting in a truck stop waiting on a load. But they're trying to sell it as we have plenty of loads, we have plenty of trailers, we just don't have the drivers to haul it. And that is a lie. I'm in the transportation industry. Go ahead.
No, how could that be a lie when you got 70 ships outside of California, and they're waiting to drop off stuff, and they say, oh no, there's a lack of truckers. That's why they're sitting out there. Baloney. You know, the media conglomerates. I'm sorry, I'll bring up this point. I don't mean to railroad you, but 99 companies in the world. 9 companies own 90% of the world's media. 9 companies, and they're all invested by BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street, and so is it any wonder that you get gaslighted by the media, that you get propagandized? Mm-hmm. It's because they're all in cahoots.
Yep, they're all in it together, and
yep.
But that's what they're selling you, folks. They're trying to tell you there's a shortage of truck drivers. Okay, all right. Well, now, to my knowledge, the mandatory vaccination junk hasn't hit the trucking industry yet. I don't know if there's any smaller companies that are already scared of the threats and mandating vaccines for their companies. I know the larger companies right now are just laying low to see what's going to happen. I know one major company, I won't say the name, but they're well known. You've seen their trucks everywhere. They said, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because it's not law. And once it becomes law, we'll worry about it then. But until then, just keep on trucking. So
right, because the mandate is not a law.
That's right. It's not a law. And so we're being lied to, gaslighted, just like we are with the vaccines and everything else, which is the economics of destruction. You know, they're using this medical tyranny, and now they're using our freight tyranny to bring us down to a third world, and not to mention the borders, because now they're saying the hospital's overrun. I mean, all through this pandemic, Pat, how many times have they said the hospitals are just jam-packed, right?
Yeah.
But yet, when you go to a hospital, the citizen reporters go there, and the hospitals are just like they always have been. They're not overrun. I went to the hospital over COVID, and there was no one in the waiting room when I got there. They put me right in the room, and yeah, they said they had a large volume of people, but it wasn't, you know, they were able to handle it. And prayers for my mom. Yesterday we had a scare with her, and she got all worked out, but she had to go to the hospital. And she got out this morning, and so there are rooms available. We're being lied to about that now, but yet now they're saying we have shortages of rooms, we have shortages of this. So let's go ahead and start firing the nurses and doctors for not taking this vaccine. And if the hospitals are overrun, Pat, why are they firing the practitioners, the nurses and doctors?
Wrecking ball.
Yep.
Got to take a wrecking ball to everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A wrecking ball is a good term to use. Okay. So they're shutting down the ports and just gradually distributing enough goods just to keep everything afloat. It's causing inflation to go up. They're getting richer on it, because inflation is nothing more than just a tax on us. And it's going into their pockets, all this extra money, because they're sitting there laughing at us. They're like, let's hold the food back. It'll go up twice as much. And then when we distribute it, we'll get twice as much in return. While we're out here in the trenches taking grenades. So am I on the right path here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, you are. It's, and I've prepared for it. I can't tell you how many cans of soup I've got, and rice and beans and pasta and cans of vegetables, and it's like, I'm going to eat them anyway. Cans last a couple of years. It's okay. And it's not what I would prefer to eat, but I'm going to eat them anyway. Even if I don't need them, I'll eat them. And so over time, every week I just buy a little more and a little more and a little more, and I've got a nice little stockpile. And so if something happens, I can not only get through it, but help my family through it, and probably the neighbors. Somebody had to do this, and I could. So,
well, you're doing a good thing, and that may be exactly what you're called to do. Well, Sister Jamie has just shot us a message, and she says they're having the exact same problem over there in the UK, a supposed lack of truck drivers, and goods are short in the stores. Fuel is not getting to the stations, and refineries can't empty their tanks because there's no one to drive the road tankers, supposedly. That's what their media is telling them. So the sea...
I read that.
Yeah. So the sea's going, tankers can't unload into the refineries, and container ships cannot unload at the docks because the dock sides are still full of unmoved goods. Okay, well, that's a good point I didn't even consider, Pat, because even if the freighter does come to the port, they're having trouble with storage because the stuff they've already unloaded, they're not shipping anywhere.
Right. That's why there's a backup.
Yep. So we can see how Go ahead.
You can't stack all that stuff. It's just you can't. There's nowhere to put it.
Mm-mm.
And so some of the stuff out there that's even fresh. You and I were talking during the week that some of the fresh stuff would get into port faster than some of the stuff that wasn't going to perish. But that's not the case, because these ships are refrigerated, and they will they'll hold the fresh food. But they're leaving them out there too. They get no priorities over anything else. So that's coming. You enjoy your salads now, because Later we may not have them for a while.
Well, and that's true. And, they do keep those in refrigerated containers. But when you sit out there long enough and the fuel runs out of the refrigeration unit, there you go. They've had reports of flies flying around those freighters out there for the simple fact food is rotting in them. So this is an absolute purposed event.
It's a man-made event.
Yeah, it is.
Or it's a devil-made event. You look at it either way. It's just, it's not. It's a man-made event. This is fairy tales to the nth degree.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is. And they're moving forward with all this, with this division. They are painting the patriots. The ones that are bowing to the government, taking the vax, wearing the masks, they're now being hailed as the ones that are going to save the world. But it's the unvaxxed, it's the patriots, it's the Christians that are the ones that are causing all of this. I want to paint a picture for you here, Pat. When Fauci created the vaccine in a lab in Wuhan, China, it's been proven by Rand Paul. The info has come out. Now, the DOJ is not going to do anything about it, of course, but they purposely did it so that they could get their mail-in ballots for the election. Now that it's out here, we're seeing they're not blaming Fauci in the Wuhan lab for it. They're blaming us, the ones who refuse to get the vaccine. They're blaming us for it, so we're paying the price. And so they're telling the American public that basically all of this shortage and everything is because of the unvaxxed. Now, it gets even better. Now Christians are coming under attack. There was a woman in government that was on a Zoom meeting, and I want you to hear what she had said. This is the next angle that they're going. They've already got everybody turning against the unvaccinated. Now listen to what she said here.
From the beginning of the outbreak, politicians have turned what they told us was a public health response into something that very much looks like a political campaign. And in a political campaign, the other side is your enemy. So all of a sudden, the public has become an opponent that politicians must subdue and defeat. How do you feel about opponents you are working to subdue and defeat? Well, you feel loathing and contempt, and that's how they do feel. They're not hiding it anymore. Take a look at this video, which we just got. It's from yesterday. It shows a Democratic congresswoman from Iowa called Cindy Axne, and she's explaining her party's response to COVID. She doesn't say anything that remarkable. It's how she says it. Listen to how she talks about her constituents. She so clearly hates them. Watch.
So now all the schools are back wanting to put mask mandates in, and all the anti-vaxxer crazies are out there with their, it's a hot mess. I'll be honest. Christian right is, everything under the guise while they hold a cross and for God or whatever, and they use it like a weapon, and it's painful to watch because they've weaponized religion, they've weaponized politics.
Yeah, the Christians are weaponizing it. Notice all the abortion clinics they closed. Politicians who closed the churches, actually.
Exactly. So now they're blaming Christians for weaponizing all of this. When exactly they're the ones that closed the churches, all right. But they wanted their abortion clinics still open. So you see the angle they're going now, Pat.
How does anybody buy this logic?
Well, exactly. I mean, at what point when you see what they're doing and the lies come out, and then they just move to the next one, and people follow it like they're choking, and these lies are oxygen.
There is a reason I think they do it that way. You know why sports was invented thousands of years ago? They would have the Lions against the guy. Oh, rip them to shreds. And they would have the Olympics, and they would have, because of competition, because everybody wants a winner and everybody wants to see the loser get pummeled. And I was watching Dagan McDowell yesterday on Fox News, and she was on the 5, and it was a little drop from her, and she says, oh man, I love a good cat fight, and that's just what it is. Everybody loves to see the competition, and so that's what politically it is. This is, how many people can we get to hate against each other because it's competition? You're on that side, you're on that side, you guys fight it out, and then when you guys are finished, there'll be less of you, and I can get you on your knees, and you can come with me.
That's a great analogy, and I never thought about it like that, but now that you have brought that up, because you've heard me several times on the program talk about conditioning with all of this safety mandates and safety nowadays. They condition you to follow the crowd at chow time with all of these safety regulations, knowing good and well they were going to bring out these draconian laws under COVID and all of that. So you have already conditioned yourself to follow safety guidelines, and now under the guise of safety, they're going to initiate tyranny, and you have already conditioned yourself. And this division that they're trying to create is the same thing, because I never looked at it that way, Pat. They have conditioned us to accept and get an addiction to competition, and that there will be a winner and a loser, so that we will know, each side, and we can. That's a good point. That's a real good
We've wanted it for 1,000 years. We've wanted it for thousands of years. We've wanted competition. We welcome it. We want to see people get stomped, and we want to see a winner, and we want to see this, and we want to see that. And who's going to win? And I get the bragging rights, or, oh, man, they're going to chase me down the mountain. And that's what it's all about. It's sports. That's why sports exists. That's why people buy the tickets. They cheer, they boo, they get it out of their system.
Very true.
That's what this is about. Yep.
Very true, and it's working. Now, a congresswoman was interviewing one of the heads of the FBI the other day, and they're deeming the patriots and the Trump supporters. They're already deeming them domestic terrorists because of this quote unquote January 6th insurrection, where it's already been proven the cops let them in. It was Antifa, the majority of them dressing up like Trump supporters, causing this so that they could get their opportunity to use this to their advantage, that it was an insurrection. So now the patriots are considered domestic terrorists. Now, let's just say, for the sake of arguing, that it really was legit, that the patriots did go into the Capitol, break a few windows, turn over some vases, and steal some laptops, okay? That's a bad thing, all right? But patriots has never gone out into cities and commandeered a whole community and called it their own zone, beating women, raping women, kicking in their doors, burning down their homes, burning down federal buildings, busting windows, chasing people down the streets like Antifa did, okay? Now, so never once have any of the government officials called an Antifa group a terrorist, all right? But the patriots are. Now, check this out. A congresswoman put the thumb on him and point blank asked him about Antifa. And check this out.
You mentioned in the FBI and domestic terrorism, there are these subcategories of domestic terrorism: racial, anti-government, animal, environmental, abortion, and catch-all. I think those are what I heard. Under the anti-government category or subcategory of domestic terrorism, would that include groups like Antifa or Black Lives Matter, folks who commit violence or acts of domestic terrorism?
Well, we don't identify groups, but individuals' actions. So if individuals are committing actions that would be in furtherance of anti-government or anarchist ideals, then they would fall into that category.
So would you quantify Antifa as an anarchist group then under that subcategory? I mean, it's an anarchist group, right? Or related?
There are individuals, I think the director has previously described them as a movement, and there have been individuals that have associated or identified with Antifa that have conducted violent acts that we would categorize as anarchist.
How many acts of violence or domestic terrorism has Antifa committed over the last 2 years?
Now watch this long delay here.
Since we don't categorize Antifa, nor do we calculate or collate information regarding Antifa, that movement, we don't have that. But we could provide you information on anarchist threats and cases in general.
How many open cases of anarchist violence and domestic terrorism have occurred over the last 2 years?
Check out this long pause.
Yeah. I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So we have, as far as arrest activities for the anti-government, anti-authority, we have 75 total arrests, and within that would be the anti-government, 36 being of anti-government and 21 being militia violence. That's all part of our anti-government authority.
Okay. And interesting. I mean, Antifa's real. It's not a myth.
Okay. So the whole point of this is, I hope you grasp it. But Pat, what just happened here is they're going to classify anti-government groups as domestic terrorists. But Antifa was not going against the government. The patriots that want the Constitution to be the law of the land as it should be, and they want freedom, and they want family, and they want everything that has been promised to us from our forefathers, that is anti-government. Okay? So what just happened here is you were just told, America, that Antifa is doing what the government wants them to do, and the constitutional patriots are not doing what the government wants them to do. What say you, Pat?
You know, he never did answer the question, and he tried to do a computer reboot in his head while he's trying to figure this out. And instead of how many actions was the question, and he's saying, well, we arrested X number of people with this and that and the other thing. There's another aspect of this. You know, when you're talking about January 6th in the Capitol, there are 14,000 hours cumulatively of video that they have not been really willing to release that shows that the Patriots did nothing. They did nothing wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. They walked in there and they were like, wow. You know, they didn't want to break anything. They didn't want to bust. They were like, wow, this is so precious. Look at this history. You know, there was nothing like that. But that's being kept under wraps. So again, they're designing a fairy tale, and they are repeating it enough times to get as many people as they can to believe it.
Yep, that's exactly right. Now, when the parents have enough and America has enough, can see through this disguise, the parents now are starting to get involved. See, these global elites, they had us dumbed down, like you said, Pat, with sports. They had us dumbed down with movies, Hollywood, all of these things that they had us dumbed down about, because we were looking up to these people in high places. We were looking up to Hollywood, looking up to our sports teams. And then what started happening? Our sports teams in Hollywood started showing the truth. The veil was being lifted. Then they turned against our values and started promoting that of this tyrannical government. And then when the vaccine and the coronavirus and all this kicked in, you could really see the forest for the trees at that point. And so people got tired of it. They started turning off their ball games and quit watching the Hollywood movies. The one thing that came from this lockdown, I believe is good, is that people got back with their families. They got back to the root, and they realized that these people that they had been looking up to are nothing now. And they have awakened to this. And now, once we have got back out into society, got the ball back rolling, things are opening up. now people are getting involved as they should have been all along. The parents are now getting involved in the school systems. Patriots are getting involved now in Congress. We've got people like Robbie Starbuck, a total patriot, running for office. All of these people now are rising up to get into the congressional seats that are constitutionalists. Now, the media and the deep state sees this. So what do? They try to paint these parents in a dark light. Now, Pat, let me ask you a question. This girl that has disappeared, okay? Or disappeared, she was murdered, but her boyfriend is out on the run. We've got Dog the Bounty Hunter chasing him down. And, where's the FBI? But we've got Dog the Bounty Chaser. But, if you were that girl's parents, you would, let's just say someone did that to your daughter. They better hope that Dog the Bounty Hunter gets to them first, correct?
Correct, because I would be sinning. I would. That would be a temptation that I may not be able to resist.
Well, exactly.
I think you and I talked about this earlier this week. Not this, but something else. And you got to let go of that stuff.
Right.
You said. I was talking to you about it. You got to let go of that stuff. Yeah. And as bad as that is, and as much temptation as it would be to absolutely destroy the idiot that did this, if that happened to me, I would have to say, let God handle it. Give it to God. And that's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
Well, it is a tough one. But when it comes to the schools, though, now the parents are getting involved. They're coming to the school board, and they're putting them on notice. Now, every one of these clips that we have played in our past shows where the parents have stood up against the school board, yes, they're mad, yes, they're angry, and yes, they're giving them the what for, but at the end of it, they say, we are going to vote you out. We are going to vote you out. Your term here is done. You're going to be voted out, and we're going to put people in that's going to do what we expect them to do. That's what they've been saying. Listen to what CNN did. Listen how they have turned the parents now into terrorists. Listen how they promote this story.
COVID concerns in school districts across the country are now leading to dangerous situations for school board members. They're worried for their own safety after an increasing number of threats like these.
Calm down. Yes. Calm down. We know who you are. We know who you are. You can leave freely, but we will find you, and we know who you are. You will never be allowed in public again.
And I'm going to come for everybody that comes at my kid with this stupid, ridiculous mandate.
We are the storm, and we are here already. And when this whole thing crumbles to the ground, we will be here to hold you accountable for your crimes against humanity.
Okay, right here. Look, right here. So as you can see, fists are now flying. All of this on live television. Fists are flying.
You are allowing child abuse. 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 You, with your snotty little face, you're allowing it as well.
So the National School Boards Association is asking the White House and the Education Department to help ensure the security of its members. And the group's president, Viola Garcia, is joining us now to talk about this.
All right. So they cut the clips right there before they say, we're going to vote you out of office. We're going to put people in that's going to do what we expect them to do. They cut that part off and just leave the part to where it does sound like, these are threats. And, the ones that are asleep, the sheep out in the world, they eat that up as though that's the gospel, Pat. What do you say about that?
Yeah, because they leave out to you, if you take a photograph of somebody robbing a bank and you zoom way out and you have a great field of view of the teller and the robber and that and the rest of the bank. But then I move the camera to the left And then look at that. Nothing's happening in the bank. Here's the picture of the bank, and nothing's happening. Why? Because that's out of view. So they're keeping stuff out of view. Lots of emotion, tons of emotion, but they don't leave in the reason for why the emotion. Why are they passionate about that? Why are fists flying? Why isn't there a hockey game playing? I mean, you just it's bad reporting. It's worse than bad. It's on purpose.
Yeah, it's criminal.
It is slanted reporting. So.
Yeah, it's criminal. It's misleading, and I've shared it before. Having a ham license with the FCC, whether you're an amateur radio operator or you're a broadcast radio deal, if you promote or purposely spread propaganda, that is a crime against the FCC. And if you do it to the point to where it causes violence, well, that carries a greater sentence and a greater fine. And you can have all of your equipment taken from you, and you can pay exuberant fines in doing these very things. And this is exactly what the news agencies are doing that are governed under the same FCC laws, and nothing happens to them. And you put the icing on the cake at the beginning when you talked about everyone who owns these people.
Right, and the corporations, they're all invested heavily by these big three, and we're talking all the media. So the media gets their content. Where do they get their content from? They're like reporters? No, they're like three places where they get content. They get Reuters, and then there's a place in Canada, and then there's another place in France. And I had not heard of those two, but that's it. That's where you get your stories from, and that's it. So who owns those? Well, again, it's those big three companies. So you're going to get that kind of slant. If you're drawing from that content, you're not going to get the whole story. You're not going to get it. You watch the news, you're not going to get it. So I haven't watched the TV since 2013. Seriously, you're just not going to get it. I've known this for a long time, being in the business and seeing what I have seen. And sometimes I didn't know why, but now I do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. We're going to cover a little bit of the vaccine because what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to paint a picture with a broad brush, because we're going to dive into Revelations 18, and I want to get your take on what you wanted to share out of it. So we've covered the fact that they're shutting us down. They're going to try and make us subservient to them because of all of our goods. We're going to come begging to them for food and supplies. They are demonizing and turning against the Constitution. They're turning against those that want family and freedom in God. This anti-God government, this anti-Christ spirit is totally consuming everything. They're turning the parents now against the school board and painting the parents as the domestic terrorists. Now they're weaponizing the vaccine. Check this out. This is from de Blasio up in New York.
Most people, the vast majority of people, even those who say, I didn't want to get vaccinated, make a different decision when it becomes very, very practical. So now someone is literally looking at the possibility they won't have a paycheck for a prolonged period of time. They may even lose their job ultimately. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, hold up, okay, I'll get vaccinated.
Oh, we'll take your paycheck away. Just punch you in the face or starve you to death. Won't even beat up your kids. Turns out if you hurt people enough, they will do exactly what you say. So that actually works. Bill de Blasio is clearly a moron, but even he understands that. And it does work. United Airlines just announced it is firing nearly 600 people. Why are they doing that? Well, they don't want to pay tens of millions of dollars in fines.
So now under a constitution where you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you do not do as they say and take this draconian vaccine that they want in your body, while at the same time they're trying to keep abortion flowing by saying it's a woman's choice, it's a medical choice, and she can make this medical choice to kill a child, you have to take the vaccine. And there is no religious exemptions. They have already taken that out. You cannot claim your religious liberties granted to you under the First Amendment that states Congress shall pass no law establishing a religion or the free practice thereof, meaning that the interpretation of your religious belief is just that. It's solely your interpretation, and Congress cannot pass any law to go against your interpretation of your religion. I mean, for the love of Pete, Pat, the Church of Satan is suing Texas over Texas stopping the abortion that they have stopped on the grounds that that's part of their religious belief is abortion. I mean, just openly saying it, all right? And it's just like, my goodness, they have literally divided the nation in two, and if you follow the government, you can have everything you want, and if you don't, we're taking everything from you. There is this literal, it's almost unbelievable that we would see this in our country. So I turn to this, Pat. When we read Revelations 18, the fall of Babylon, these are the very things that is talked about. And I know it's argued by pastors and preachers everywhere. Oh, you know, America is not Babylon in this scripture. And I'm really not saying that it is America. All of these nations are falling victim to all of these draconian things. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in France. France and their people are rising up everywhere. So, you know, we put Babylon here as America, but put your own country in here. And let's talk about Revelations 18, Pat.
All right. Why don't I just read it and we'll get through it? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Will that work?
Yeah, that'll work.
All right. So here comes chapters 1 and 2 and so forth. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven. Angel is a messenger, right?
Right.
He had great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his splendor. With a mighty voice, he shouted, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great! She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries." That's the first three, the first three verses.
Well, let's take it there then. So she has become, this is the description of Babylon, which, you know, this kind of points to America, and I'm going to tell you why. She's become a home of demons. All right, we can see that, and a haunt for every evil spirit, an unclean spirit, and detestable bird. We're seeing that. We're seeing that everywhere, with abortion, with just literally ripping the heart out of Middle America. Other nations have been drunk with the maddening wine of her adulteries. America is number one in pornography. America is number one in distributing this stuff throughout the world. I mean, I know they do it in other nations, but America led the way. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. What were we just talking about? With this inflation, with them holding the freighters out there, with these investment groups that, Pat, you opened up with, they're not just here in America, folks. All of these investors are globally. There's some in the UK.
And we're also talking about the vaccines that aren't a vaccine. We're talking about the luxuries of big pharma, which again is invested in by all these 3, 4, 5, 10 investment conglomerates. So yeah, they're excessive luxuries for sure.
Yeah,
and they're growing rich from it.
They are. All right, take off at verse 4 and on.
So we have a warning to escape Babylon's judgment. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues.
for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Pour her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit enthroned as queen. I'm not a widow. I will never mourn. Therefore, in one day, her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her.
All right. That one there, that whole section is pretty much self-explanatory, but let me get to this last part where it says, I sit a queen and not a widow, and I will never mourn. That's kind of the America spirit. We have a bit of pride against ourselves that, we're a mighty army. We're a mighty nation. We're a nation of patriots. We are really the only nation that still has gun rights. Mind you, the CDC is trying to take, because now they're saying that gun violence is a health risk. So now the CDC is starting to come after the guns, but that's for a different show. But that's kind of the way we have felt. And therefore, in one day, her plagues will overtake her: death, mourning, and famine. Okay, we're about to see a famine. We have already had death and mourning from the coronavirus and such, and then she will be consumed by fire. What have we been covering? And at the end of the show, we're going to cover Mike's interview about the fire of the volcanoes that are about to continue to erupt in other places, and now the meteors that are coming in. Pat, Thursday night, we had a meteor blow up over Ashland City, Tennessee, in Cheatham County. And to my Cheatham County family out there, when it blew up, everybody thought the revolution had started and run out with their AR-15s and realized it was a meteor and just went back in the house, But they thought that was a shot that was heard around the world.
Well, God bless them. They were at the ready.
Yeah, but we're starting to see the fire from heaven. In verse 9, I'll let you go ahead. Or do you want to add to that? Do you want to add to that?
No, I'll read it because there's some important stuff here that I want to get to. I want to get through the whole thing, and so let me continue here. When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, Woe, woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon. In 1 hour your doom has come. And the merchants of earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. They will say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you. All your luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry out, Woe, woe to you, great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls. In 1 hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin. And every sea captain and all who travel by ship, the sailors and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far off. And when they see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, Was there ever a city like this great city? They will throw dust on their heads and with weeping and mourning cry out, "Woe, woe to you, great city, where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin. Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people of God. Rejoice, apostles and prophets. For God has judged her with the judgment she imposed on you."
All right. I've got an interpretation of all of that. What's yours?
You want to hear it?
I do.
Let me. Okay, I mean, just looking at the. Okay, I'll tell you exactly what I think. Where is the biggest port in the United States?
Well, it would be Long Beach out there, wouldn't it?
Los Angeles and Long Beach. It extends from L.A. all the way to Long Beach.
Right.
Okay. And even farther. Okay. That's, maybe halfway to San Diego. Maybe not. But in that area. Now, what month is this?
October.
And what happens in October? Well, we have the Santa Ana winds. Why do we have the Santa Ana winds, and what do they do? Well, when things catch on fire, there's a lot of breeze going on from the desert that goes out towards California, out towards L.A., and out towards Long Beach, and out towards a little south of there from San Diego, and the fires start spreading. So the fires will spread there. In the meantime, you've got 70 ships outside the port, and they don't want to come near it because they're told not to. And so they're seeing all this smoke and fire that is about to come because it's the season for it. Every October through April, you get to see the dry season in California with the fires, and it doesn't take much to all these limbs and stuff. That's why when President Trump was talking about cleaning up the forest, and the reason you do that is because they're just kindling for the trees. If that gets on fire, all that is it's going to start up and kindling for the great fire in the trees that are dry, and they will burn to a crisp. And you have all these forest fires, and that's what they're talking about. And not only that, when you're talking about angels, what is Los Angeles? Los Angeles is the city of angels.
Wow. I didn't even consider it that way. And he's right, folks. The Santa Ana winds, I have driven a truck out there many years, and when they kick up and start blowing, I mean, they'll be sustained winds of like 50, 60, sometimes 70 miles an hour. And the Department of Transportation out there in California will stop an interstate at a certain place and have the trucks go in and weigh themselves. And if they don't weigh a certain weight, they're not even allowed to travel on the roads. And they stay consistent for about 2 weeks, if I remember right, 2 weeks, something like that. And, Pat, Mike has told us in 2 or 3 different interviews, folks, that we have got incoming meteors coming that will reach the ground at biscuit size and cause wildfires. So what if, we're having them come in. They came over Nashville. A buddy of mine Friday morning from Panama City called me and said they just had one around noon come in Panama City. It blew up in the sky and shook houses. Yesterday or last night, they had one come in over Brazil that blew up in the atmosphere. And Mike told us, at the beginning of October, we're going to start seeing the beginning stages. So, Pat, I never thought of that. What if the Santa Ana winds do come, and then we have a slew of meteorites come in and start setting wildfires all over the West?
And so Los Angeles is a city of angels, and where's the Babylon in Los Angeles? When we talk about Hollywood and Vine, how about we talk about Hollywood?
Yeah.
Hollywood is where all of the Babylon is. That's where that is. I've been on that corner, Hollywood and Vine. There's a Capitol Records building, big white building. The top of the building was the radio and records outfit. They would print newspapers, and if you went up there, you get one for free because they were pretty expensive. Every station would get one, and everybody wanted to read it. But it's just an inside industry. A newspaper is what it was. But if you go to Hollywood, people think that Hollywood is glamorous. It's not. It's infested. It's drug infested. It's scary. It's loaded with, it smells like urine. You go to the Grumman Theater, and, where they have the handprints and the footprints and the stuff, it smells like urine there. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you go there, and I remember being there and going, this isn't what I thought it was. And that's what it is. It's Hollywood. They're talking about Hollywood and Los Angeles and California and the Great Fires and the angels who are messengers. Los Angeles, the city of angels. That's what I think is going on. I could be wrong, but that's my guess.
Well, all right. Well, let's take it a little further. Not only do we have freighters off the coast of California, well, we've got them off the coast of Miami. We've got them sitting out in the Atlantic off the coast of Jersey over there. It's not just California, folks. It's all of our ports down there in Louisiana. They're sitting off in the Gulf. They're sitting. We have, just like Revelations said, now we're not sitting here telling you that we're about to see Revelations 18 happen. But think about it. We've got ships sitting off of the shores looking at this continent, okay, everywhere, pretty much surrounding the United States. We've got freighters just sitting out there doing nothing but
and the setup is there.
Yeah.
The setup is there.
The setup is there?
The setup of all this, it could happen. And so the setup is there, and so you got to beware.
Yeah. Okay, I know you have seen many more moons than I have. But
you're not talking about Babylon now, are you? Never mind.
But in your lifetime, have you ever seen a backup of freighters like this?
No, not anywhere really. Well, yeah, sometimes they would back up in the Suez Canal. Sometimes in the Panama Canal, they couldn't get through for one reason or another. But mostly that was oil products, if you remember that. And other than that, we have port, and I didn't know that. I thought this was just a problem in Los Angeles with the port out there, because there's ports in Seattle. There's one in Frisco. There's one, I believe, in Oregon somewhere. There are a lot of places that, why are these ships waiting? That's what I'm thinking. What are they waiting for? Why don't they just go up the coast a little bit and dump there? But they can't. And obviously they can't.
Yeah, and they're not being allowed. They're being shut off. But I'm glad that you brought this up, because you thought there at the beginning, before we started the show, I might not agree with you. But, man, not only do I agree with you, I agree with you 110% on this. I never even put two and two together until you brought this to my attention. Wow. And like I said, Mike says that we have this major cluster that's coming. The interview that I'm going to share in just a little bit later with the latest Mike has, that was from Thursday night, he did one himself on his own podcast without Paul Begley being involved, and it was impressive.
What?
Yeah, what? Are you serious? And he's talking about these gamma rays, and I was going to play that one tonight, but the one that he had Thursday, I may play the gamma one. I'm not going to be here next week. I'm taking next Saturday off, so I may get his entire deal where he's talking about the gamma rays and then put that in place of a show, since I'm not going to be here. And then you can have the opportunity to hear that. But, in this one, he goes from Thursday night, he goes into greater detail about the debris field that's coming to the earth. And mind you, that show was Thursday night, Pat, and it ended an hour before the meteor blew up over Nashville, so they didn't naturally cover that because it hadn't happened yet. But with what he said was coming, and then to have a meteor blow up over Nashville an hour later was just unbelievable. All right. Get us...
he's got to be in the loop.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's got to. I don't know who he is, but he's been dead on. All right. Get us 21 through 24. Finish us up with this. And before you do, people, remember now about this cluster of meteors that we have coming. Go ahead.
This is the finality of Babylon's doom. And we'll pick up at 21 here. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, "With such violence, the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. The music of harpists and the musicians, pipers and trumpeters will never be heard in you again. No worker of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's important people. By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of prophets and of God's holy people, of all who have been slaughtered on the earth."
All right. So a large millstone, a meteor. You know, when John, they didn't have the term meteor back in John's day, but he saw a giant millstone be cast into Babylon, and it caused all of these tragedies. And when it talks about the harpists and musicians and flute players and trumpeters, you know, that's all of the music industry will never be heard again.
That's Hollywood.
That's Hollywood. That's all of it combined. Naturally, the light of the lamp will never shine again. There's your grid system. All right. No workman of any trade will be found. So, I mean, it's just like we're going to be laid desolate. But here's what I want to talk about here, because Paul and I have covered this ad nauseum, Pat, about the magic spell. In the King James Version, people, it says sorceries, that by your sorceries, all nations were led astray. And if you look at the word sorcery, now in the new version, the modern version, it does say magic spell, but the King James says sorceries. And if you look at sorceries or magic spells, and you look at that word in the Greek, that word is pharmakia. Pharmakia, where we get our word pharmaceutical, where we get our word pharmacy. So if we read it in the Greek, it will say, "By your pharmaceuticals, all nations were led astray." All right. So we've got all of these ships sitting out on the sea, all around our nation, looking at America, doing nothing but just sitting out there. We've got a cluster of meteors coming, and it's by our pharmakia that we led all nations astray. Now, I know that this disease happened in America, or happened out of China, but who are the ones pulling the strings on the vaccine and getting it out and getting the world involved? It is America. It's Dr. Fauci and his crew, the Pfizer, okay, the Moderna, all of these pharmaceutical companies out of America is what has distributed this pharmaceutical all around the world. What say you, Pat?
You've said it all there, because that's what they're laying down, and they're just keep hitting that bizarre logic of blaming the people who are not vaccinated. Because if you're vaccinated, first of all, it's not a vaccine. I hate using the word vaccine because it's not. So I usually call it the clot shot or the injection or whatever whatever fun I get poke at it. No pun intended. And so they use that over and over and over and over again. One of the things in broadcasting, talk about broadcasting, you talk about commercials. You know, the people that, and I'm just going to veer off here a little bit, the people that advertise the most, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Pepsi, and you name it, Budweiser. Budweiser is the king of beers. Really? If you had one ever, they're terrible. but they're king. But really, they're the king of beers. Really? No, they just advertise a ton. And if you keep telling someone something, they're bound to believe it. If you keep at it, because they don't have time to search this out. They don't have to. They're relying on people that they trust on the TV to tell them the news. And so that's how that happens. They keep pounding and pounding and pounding. So it's like the Chinese water torture. You know, they just keep dripping at your forehead, bing, 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 and then, finally you go, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm buying it. That's it. So how they do that with that logic, I don't know. I don't get it. Because if you have the vaccine, supposedly, you're covered. So what's the problem? The disease isn't going away. Well, who would it affect? Would it affect you, the vaccinated, or would it affect the people who would choose not to be vaccinated? I mean, it's simple. A 3-year-old could understand this. And yet, propaganda is so strong that they can have people believing the other way around.
Mm-hmm. It is. And they have lulled the population to sleep. And again, we're not saying that Revelations 18 is about to happen, but man, if you look at it, the stage is set that it could happen. Because we don't know how long these freighters are going to stay out there. I mean, what if Biden keeps them out there for another year? Because they are unloading them. They're just doing it very slowly. But you're still going to have more freighters piling up. And so if they're doing it this way, there's always going to be a volume of freighters sitting out there waiting from here on out or until something changes.
It's like bending a garden hose.
Yeah.
You've got a full water going out of your garden hose. Now you had a sprinkler out in front in your front yard, and you just bend the water hose, and all of a sudden you're not covering much of the yard now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Economics of destruction. We can see now how they go hand in hand. And notice, I might be reaching here, but I'm a watchman. I got to throw it out there. 1 Thessalonians or 2 Thessalonians 5:3, 1 Thessalonians 2. Anyway, when they say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. And we're assuming that that's making reference to Israel. Once there's been a deal signed and they say peace and safety. But everything about this coronavirus, this pharmakia, everything about this sorcery, everything about taking your rights away, they're taking your rights away for safety, to keep you safe. They're creating this vaccine for safety. So I'm curious now is this the sudden destruction that we're about to see, the coming of the Lord? Is it all playing out? Is it all about to happen? Or, are we this close, I guess is the question I'm asking. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I don't know. It's like going to the theater in New York on Broadway. I'm going to take you to a show, Smokehouse. I'm going to take you to a show, but I'm going to tell you what it is. And we're going to go in, and then they'll set up the props. You still don't know what it is. You're blind, and you didn't see the marquee. You don't know what it is. And the curtain goes up, and you see all the props. And then you kind of figure out what show that is. And that's what's happening here in the world. All the props are sort of in the right place. They're getting there. They're all going here in the right direction. And it could be this play. It could be that play in the playbook.
Yeah, it really could. I'm glad you brought this to my attention. About the ships looking far off at the destruction. Because wow, I tell you, my wife, she is addicted to these Dateline murder mysteries that they have, where they tell the story of a murder, and then by the end of the deal, you'll find out the person either did it or he's been in prison. And I enjoy, the mystery of watching these, but when I watch it with my wife, in the first 10 minutes, she's already got it figured out. She's already like, well, he did it. It wasn't him. You watch. It wasn't him. It was his friend that did it. You're going to figure that out. And sure enough, it was the friend that did it. And she just ruined the whole thing for me. It was like a hour that was wasted. So I've been there. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take Revelations 18 down there to her and show her everything that's happening with the freighters and the meteors coming. I'm gonna start into Revelations 18, and she will tell us when it's gonna happen.
That would be that works. Yes.
This is so true. Now, I got some good news for us, Pat.
Cool.
Something is happening. Now, I have, veered away from the Q and all that, but did you notice that the 1st of October, the White House was lit up in red that night?
No, I didn't.
It sure was. They were shining a red light on the White House. And, of course, the people that we follow are saying, Red October. Red October, that's a signal.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to send you the latest video. It's pretty interesting. But you're the one that sent me this. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he is associated with Australia One, where he sent a warning out to the elite of Australia that your days are numbered, right?
Right.
All right. Now, in reading Revelations 18, God's fury, he's against everyone who is deceitful, sinning, and part of Babylon. So whether you're in Hollywood or in government or just Joe Smith that is just a normal guy who's out doing things against God, cheating on your wife or whatever, all of us, when it rains on the just and the unjust. And the whole point is, when this comes, it's coming up on all of us, but it is because of these people, okay? They're all of our sins, but mainly these wicked ones, okay? All right. So are we seeing this about to happen? And I say that. Let me refresh the listeners, Pat. I've just got a quick excerpt of what this gentleman had said. And listen to what he says. This is a warning to Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen of Australia, my name is Ricardo Bosi, and I am the National Leader of Australia One. In the coming days, weeks and months, disturbing rumours concerning the governance of our country will begin to circulate. These rumours will appear to be so incredible, so unlikely, and even so ludicrous that the only sensible response would appear to be to dismiss them out of hand. Some of these rumours will, in time, indeed prove to be false. Unfortunately, some will be true and be prima facie evidence of the despicable crimes of treason and sedition, and some even morally worse, by those at the highest levels of power in Australia. During this time, it is imperative you monitor closely the responses of those who comprise the polity, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the military, the constabulary, the corporations, the media, academia, and religious organisations. The case can already be made that many of these people are already attainted of treason. But if any remain silent in the face of an obvious attack on Australian sovereignty, they will have signed their own death warrants. Remember them. From the Governor-General and State Governors, through Parliament, through all the courts including the High Court, through the Public Service, the Defence Force, the police forces, the boardrooms, the unions, the charities, the mainstream media, schools and universities, and finally, even the churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and lodges. Remember their names and who they are. Remember what they said and what they did not say. Remember what they did and what they did not do. Why and how has it come to this? Simply put, for decades now, we have been deceived by those whom we trusted. Slowly, the truth has been revealed by the tireless efforts of a few, and this has been a most difficult task. Some of you will have heard it said, sometimes you can't tell people, you just have to show them.
All right, so that was just a piece of the warning that was given to the elites and the criminals in Australia. And we shared that a few weeks ago in its entirety. And thank you, Pat. You're the one that sent that to me. But here we have on, I believe it was October 1st. If not, it was the day before. But this shocked us to the core. You know, we have shared the Australian president, how she has been hammering the Australian people and locking them down. And if you even get out of your house in Australia now, and we have listeners over in Australia, and listen, Australians, we are praying for you, okay? But there has been so much just tyranny in Australia, and they don't have any weapons. Their weapons were taken years ago. But this warning comes out.
And they let them be taken.
Well, exactly. They let them be taken. They actually handed them in, surprisingly.
Yep.
But so this warning came out to the Australians, and then this is the Australian president just the other day.
Pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier. My resignation will take effect as soon as the New South Wales Liberal Party can elect a new parliamentary leader. In order to allow the new leader and government a fresh start, I'll also resign from the New South Wales Parliament once I've consulted the Electoral Commission on appropriate timing for a by-election, given the COVID restrictions. My resignation as Premier could not occur at a worse time, but the timing is completely outside of my control, as the ICAC has chosen to take this action during the most challenging weeks of the most challenging times in the state's history. That is the ICAC's prerogative. Resigning at this time is against every instinct in my being and something which I do not want to do. I love my job and I love serving the community, but I have been given no option following the statement that's been issued. Pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier.
Wow.
Yeah, Vanguard and BlackRock said, no more of this. You're out of here.
Well, but wait a minute.
Could be. I don't know. I'm guessing.
I don't. Well, here's where I'm going with it. She was doing what Vanguard and BlackRock was wanting her to do, and and so for them to want her out, I don't think they want her out. She said, "This is something I don't want to do, but basically I'm being forced to do." So
yeah.
She resigned. We get this warning a few weeks ago from this gentleman, and then this week she resigns, and then October the 1st, the very first night of October, they light the White House up in red lights, Red October.
Darned if I didn't forget something. And I wish I'd have got. I knew I should have had it today. I knew I should have gotten it. I passed it up. Donald Trump was interviewed on, I believe it was 9/11, September 11th, and it wasn't. He wasn't really talking about what happened on 9/11 in that part of the interview, and I can't remember what that is, but I bet I'll be able to find it. This makes no sense right now, but I'll tell you the crux of it is that, and it was September 11th. I'm almost positive of that, and Trump said, well, I pray to God that things go well in the next 21 days. And that came out of nowhere. Well, what's 21 days from September 11th? Tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sitting there adding up, September 11th, it counts. So it'd be the 12th, 19th, 26th, that's 14. 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, that's 4 more, that's 18. And then 1 and 2 would be 20. Tomorrow is 21. I want to know what's going on. What's going to happen?
Well, I do too. Well, the fact that the Australian president had to resign against her will, that's interesting. Now, we don't know how God's judgment will be distributed. I mean, we know it's going to be coming in the form of fire to the earth and earthquakes and sinkholes and all this that Mike's going to cover in this next interview that we're fixing to play. But, you know, what if also God's judgment comes in the form of actual judicialism and tribunals? You know, we don't know. But I can guarantee you, with what they're doing with children, you know, we have this week, DeSantis down there in Florida, man, he has filed a lawsuit against Joe Biden for human trafficking because he's bringing these busloads of illegals all over the United States and into Florida, and that is the definition of human trafficking. DeSantis has filed a lawsuit against Biden over this. So, I mean, you know, things on the good side seem to be shaping up as well. What do you think?
I think that other people ought to follow DeSantis' decision and join in on the suit to Biden and get these people back where they were. To say that they were uninvited and they're here against the law. There's a place. I'm not against people coming into this country. Lord knows I'm not against that at all. I've embraced the fact that we have liberty and we have freedom and we have justice, and there are rules of how you get to be an American citizen, and there's time and there's study and there's and it's made that you savor that. You went through all that and you savored that. It's so good. You worked for it, and now you got these yahoos coming through the border. No. These people are illegals. You send them back. And you say, do you want to get in? You can stand in line. And our country can dictate, our country can say how many come through properly in any 1 year. They can limit that. Because you can't, if you're going to, it's like having a pot of spaghetti sauce going, and I think I'm going to dump a whole container of oregano in there. That isn't going to work. It's got to be only a little bit. So there's a recipe for people coming into the country that keeps the balance of the flavors going here, the assimilation and stuff. And the people who are crossing the border illegally, and they know they can do it because Biden's letting them do it, even though he says, "Oh no, the borders are closed." No. They know they're coming across. They know thousands and thousands and thousands. Not good.
No, it's not good at all. This may be a part of. These gamma rays too that Mike shared Tuesday that I'll just put up for a show slot next Saturday since I won't be here. But there is coming, he said, and I had a call from my buddy Richard. Everybody knows him as Old Chicken Hawk, but we had a long talk today. And what he shared with me about this enlightenment, this spiritual enhancement, this great awakening. We've been told that this has been a great awakening that's happening, that people have to be shown. Even the gentleman in Australia said the people have to be shown to wake people up. And this, God said that he's going to pour his spirit out upon all flesh. And with what Mike was talking about, these gamma rays that are coming at the earth, this is what it's going to be doing. It's going to be damaging to probably equipment and such, computers and such, but to the human body, it's going to be basically turning on the pineal gland in our brain and giving us a spiritual enlightenment. So I'm curious. I don't want to get too far into the gamma rays because I don't know anything about it, but the way he lays it out is easily understood. But could this be the part of the coming of Christ? Could this be not? Maybe Mike is just trying to say, okay, these are gamma rays, when actually it is the glory of the Lord's return. and the blinders are going to be taken off of us in the coming days. Maybe this is what the Great Awakening is meant by, because
well, there's a word for that, what is the word for that? What is the word for? It's not Armageddon, but it's like that. You've got to. I think it begins with an E, and I've been trying to think of it for the last hour. I'm writing it on a piece of paper, and I can't come up with a word. But there is a word that we use for part of what the Bible says is going to happen, and that word, and I wish I knew what the word is. It's an easy word, but it means in Greek to pull back the curtain. Maybe you know what I'm talking about.
All right, well, let me look it up here. Greek word, pull back curtain. All right. All right, we'll have. Why did it do that? Now that's crazy. It took me to Amazon. I can buy a pull back the curtain from Amazon. Boy, you can buy anything on Amazon, can't you, man?
Are you looking on Google?
Yeah, man.
That could be the problem.
Well, I'll do my research on that, but I get the. Hey, they even got a song, "Pull Back the Curtain" song. I can buy a song. Well, it's well, for years. All right, for years they have said, and maybe since you have seen more moons than me, you could maybe emphasize this a little more. But the Wizard of Oz, it was originally created to basically tell the story of Earth and the return of Christ, because of all the wickedness and chaos trying to come after an innocent person, and the innocent person has to follow the yellow brick road, and along the way, all of the things that happen to her till she gets to the end to find the truth, and then the curtain is unveiled, and what everyone was afraid of was nothing but just this little puny thing behind a big machine pulling levers. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever heard that theory that people say that whole movie, that's what that was telling the true story of what's going on?
Well, lately, yes, but back when I was a little kid, of course, I didn't like the flying monkeys, so that scared the dickens out of me. But but as he got older, I never heard that until recently.
Well, that's what they say.
And then,
because we're supposed to follow Christ, follow the footprints of Christ through all of these adversities in life until we finally get to the end. And even the Bible says, I can't quote it right off the top of my head, but to paraphrase, basically it says when the veil is lifted and we actually see the devil and what he was doing and who the devil is, we're going to be like, are you kidding me? We were afraid of something that small when we had something so mighty that was guiding us the whole way. I mean, that's paraphrasing. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah.
So, well, all right. Well, we have.
I'm still on the search for that, so that's all right. I can accept the loss here. I brought up something I couldn't.
Well, that's okay.
Back up.
Well, no, you go ahead. You go ahead if you. I didn't know you was looking it up.
Yeah. No, I don't. It's one of those common words. It's like Armageddon's going to happen, and they talk about something else too. And I mean, it's all the things that are going to happen at the end. It's not Armageddon though. That's not the word for it. And but it's the word in Greek means pulling back the curtain, and that means I'd have to go into my phone to see what I was looking at, and I can't do that right now because I'm on it. So,
all right, we'll see.
But
let's see. I've got here.
That'll be.
Let's see. pull it. Well, it's written in Greek, but I can't. It means to tie back, and it's opak. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is in Greek, but the English. It's the English that it's a common word when we talk about the end times, and I can't think of the name of the. I have that senior moment. Did I get a senior stroke here? You gonna give me a mulligan?
I'll give you a mulligan.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I tell you what, Pat. We're going to get to the interview since it's. I'm going to edit. Yeah. I'm going to edit this and cut out that little 8-minute section where we were trying to get everything back going. I'm going to edit it so when people go back and listen to the podcast, it'll be a fluid show. But for the people that are listening live, we've already gone 2 hours, and I know they want to hear this interview, and I want to get it going. But Pat, man,
we could probably go 2 hours more.
Oh, I know we could.
Yeah, I know.
We talk like 4 hours.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. It's been a whole lot of fun. And man, I want to thank you for being on. I mean, I'll let you tie a ribbon on everything that we've talked about.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
No, you tie the ribbon. You tie it best. I like the way you tie it.
All right. Well, then I will tie it up this way, folks. For the quality and the format and the way I have ran this show, you have been listening to the gentleman that has been my mentor throughout this whole process for years. I got a message one day. This was back when I was squeaking around on a server that kept cutting out every 2 or 3 minutes, and didn't think I had any listeners. And I got a message on Facebook one day from Rocky Metamorphosis. And
Rocky Metamorphic, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, I've been listening to your show, and if you would like some advice, man, I'd like to help you out. And, of course, I grabbed my spiral notebook and an ink pen, and I got back in touch with this Rocky Metamorphic and started taking notes, man. We shared phone numbers and got to talking, and through the years, God puts people where they need to be, and with the experience that you have had and the help that you have given me and other people, I just want to thank you for all of that, and I'm so excited to have you on the program. And I really, you came on before years ago, but I was still kind of haphazard and all that. Really hadn't developed a format, but man, now this has been an absolute blast, and we're going to have to do this a whole lot of times.
Anytime you need, I'll be there.
Well, that sounds good. Well, all right, Pat.
And God bless you, because you have come a long way, and I don't know that I've told you anything really. I just kind of, I didn't say much. I just said, do this or try that and do that. And you just, you're in the water. You're already in the water. You're like finding ways not to drown. So, you're already on it. So you're like the best student I've ever had, if you want to call it that. Because I don't think I told you all that much. Just gave you a couple of pointers and you went bing. Well, and you're on it. So
I'll share a little bit of Jerry Clower wisdom with you, okay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you say that you only offered a little bit of help, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jerry Clower said he saw a little bitty yellow jacket one time make a 2,000-pound Bramer bull jump a 8-strand barbed wire fence. So to put things in perspective, the Bible even says it. A little leaven will raise the whole loaf, right? So if you want to say that you just offered a little bit, which in my opinion, man, you offered a great deal, but if you want to say it was a little bit, then I appreciate the leaven, because you have really lifted not only a loaf on the presentation of this program, man, but it's through this program so many people have been helped and awakened. So I appreciate you being a yellow jacket there, brother.
Well, and I'll let that be. And and then so far as leaven, and forget about the leaven. Wait till we give you the baker's dozen.
That's right. That's right. We'll get together and where most shows tell people what the weather is, we're gonna show them which way the wind blows, ain't we?
That's right.
All right, brother. Well, listen, it has been a blessing, and if you want to hear this interview, it's best to just jump on the whatever server you listen to the show on, because I'm going to close out this phone system. But, man, I greatly appreciate it, and I love you to death, brother.
I salute you, Greg. Take care.
All right,
God
man.
bless.
All right. And that was brother Pat. Just about called him Brother Paul again. But, okay, folks, again, if you're going to listen to the podcast a little later, I'm going to edit out all that junk that started. But here is the latest from Mike and Paul on what's coming.
It's a busy night, isn't it?
It's a very busy night, and you never know what's going to happen next. Seems like doomsday may have arrived, or at least it's close.
Well, it's, alliances, they are together. They are moving, it seems.
So, the armies of the Antichrist, we're going to talk about that in a little bit here, because I think some of the stuff that's happening, like you said, they're moving. Can you give us any idea? Let's talk about these volcanoes first, Mike. Kilauea, Hawaii, erupts again. Ring of Fire seems like is on fire. You've got that one happening. You've got the Canary Islands still going, very bad. We were hearing about others, of course, as you've mentioned, in Italy. And then there's this super volcano that has been identified between Madagascar and East Africa. Do you have any information on this super volcano or this underwater volcano, the largest they've ever identified? You got any info on this?
Well, they had I know that May of 2015, they spotted, or they had some rumbles from this thing. 2018, it actually began to ripple throughout the earth. And it was the way they put it. I'm not sure what you guys are reading in public news, but it was one of the largest eruptions that took place. So when it actually went off in May, the rumbles from this thing, it just rippled out, and it kept rippling out. But what they noticed was the deepness of this thing, and it was since then the magma has pushed up a clear brand new volcano down there, which they actually mapped out next to the bigger trench. I'm not sure if they're showing everybody the crack in the Atlantic, but it certainly is not helping matters. And what actually has happened is these conduits of magma are channeling off. In 2018, they finally mapped one of the conduits, resulted in that volcano that I believe you're making reference to. But there are 7 more underneath the ocean that are they're just enormous. This is going to continue to happen, Paul, until the ocean floor starts to heat up beyond temperatures that we are used to, or any life period is used to. So we have a continuation effect that has been going for a few years now of the ocean heating up from the bottom, right? Because we have hot vents down there, right? 800-degree temperatures down there near that water. But imagine an area the size of Brazil, right? In the ocean. What? 800 degrees. And then that would essentially change currents, right? The currents would change as they are changing right now. That would change sea life. Numbers would decline. Certain bacteria would increase. It would just throw everything off balance. And of course, if the ocean is out of balance, then so are the mammals. They too are out of balance, because the birds are highly affected by this. And of course, that affects mammals on land. So yeah, this is that's the beginning of a chain reaction, which will go all throughout the sphere of life forms around the Earth.
So, Mike, this is a great. Of course, I've been holding this up. This is the volcano you're referring to. It's at the bottom of the ocean. It's between Madagascar and East Africa, the coast of Africa. I think it's East Africa. I could be wrong on that, but between Madagascar and Africa. Okay. And they're saying that you're saying there's a massive crack also. Are you saying this is part of that crack?
Yes.
And how big is the crack in the Atlantic Ocean?
This crack spans the Atlantic Ocean and goes underneath the ground. So it's in the ocean from the East Coast, from our East Coast, probably go down to in between Cuba and Florida, and you'll see the beginning of that crack. Then it goes northward and back down to Africa itself, near the Gulf of, that would be Guyana, probably. And then it goes through the African continent, which is where there's a brand new landmass that is about to be formed from Africa as it breaks in half, literally breaks in half, straight through to Madagascar. In fact, volcanism is following this line of cracks, these crack lines that are in the earth, and they're becoming wider and wider. This is the crack, by the way, that spews up nickel. So it's really deep. We're talking about a super deep crack, which it's spreading. Every week, this thing widens.
So it's like the planet's breaking apart. I mean,
a lot of people have called this the beginning of the end.
This is huge. So maybe when we say has doomsday arrived, we don't mean today, but we mean that the planet, according to 2 Peter 3, will melt with a fervent heat. And is that because it melts from the inside out? Is that, you think, Mike?
Yeah, I believe both from the inside out. And see, any external force, by the way, is going to just, increase this volcanism that we're having. This increased volcanism is just not happening out of the blue. We've got some enormous forces playing upon the Earth, playing upon Mars, playing upon all the inner planets and external planets for that matter. So, as this continues to go on, it's going to increase. By the way, it's exponential, meaning we could be affected one way one week. We'll have twice the effect, a week later, so on and so forth. And it just continues to happen. Earth essentially is an overcharged battery, right? It's about to hit an ignition point. And once that happens, you're looking at multiple volcanoes going off, probably near the same moments. I can tell you this. I can say this with the greatest of confidence. All of us are going to deal with an atmosphere full of black smoke and cinders.
What? In other words, I've heard you talk about get ready for everyone's going to need to wear a mask, and not talking about a gas mask from the ash and the plume and the fumes and the toxic gas. Is that what you're referring to?
You bet. And it's coming, and nothing is stopping. Past Paul, since we last talked, there are about 5 volcanoes that increased in their magnitude of emissions, going from Chile all the way up to Mexico, just in that small quadrant. There are some other ones that have increased also, but in particular, many of these volcanoes that are lined up near Chile and Peru and Ecuador, going up to Mexico, all those places going up through California all the way to Alaska, that portion of the Ring of Fire has increased tremendously since we last spoke. And of course, the Coast Plate is now rumbling. It's got a steady vibration underneath the ocean floor. And you know what that means for California.
Yeah, that doesn't mean very good things. And you've been saying...
No, that's not good news.
Because you keep, I've heard you talk about this many times. We keep watching the earthquakes in Chile and Peru and right along that, and Mexico and on up into... lot of quakes. Seems like it's really getting more and more volatile in Southern California. You're saying this is all tied together in that long fault line.
Yeah, it is, which is why you see Alaska and the Sandwich Islands. Activity in between those 2 points, essentially, because there are fault lines, yes, but how the fault lines are constructed is what they don't normally share. There are relationships, for example, between the Coast Plate and the Arabian Plate. Now, nobody would ever really think of those two being in relationship, but they are. The Australian Plate, for example, and the Antarctic plate are tied together tightly. So any action in any of these places is going to cause a reaction in another place, because when you have pressure on one side, it must be alleviated. If the forces are too great, in other words, if the land masses cannot go up, they're going to push to the left, right, north, or south. So some kind of way that pressure has to be alleviated. If magma builds up in a deep part of the earth, say for example in the northern hemisphere, then if there's a weak part of the earth in the southern hemisphere, you're going to have an eruption. Now all of these are different relationships that are being studied, being mapped, so that people can have a better warning system of what will really take place. Because we're past the point of the small happenings where an isolated volcano goes off and nothing follows. We're past that point. I don't know if anybody has actually checked the volcano map, but there are so many active volcanoes on the earth right now. It's incredible. Most scientists in the early 2000s specifically stated if we had this many volcanoes going off at one time, that we would probably not make it within a 5-year period. Going forward. Well, guess what? We have 3 times the amount of volcanoes going off right now than these guys predicted back then. So we're in, as I said before, they have a lot of people. There are a lot of people that they really should take a second look at the condition of the earth
3 times
and really understand it.
3 times more than what they warned us about, that if we ever get to this certain point of number of volcanoes active that are spewing and flowing and erupting, that we could be in real trouble 5 years within that. And you're saying we got 3 times more of that right now?
That's right. So things are worse than what people think. And it's one of the great jobs, or I'm not going to say great jobs, I'll say very labor-intensive jobs. That is a real job, is to make everything look normal, and they're doing that so well. In the 90s, when they locked down the news channels, right? When the news channels were actually locked down, and the FCC had certain rules, and they had communications policy and everything else. And to make that big money, you have to adhere to these rules. Well, they locked it down back then. And so they have a specific job and a duty and a function to keep everything normalized within a degree. So they're doing a great job, because people really believe that our greatest problems are political. Well, I hate to tell them, they're looking at Earth essentially burn up piece by piece. And we have war coming, yes, but we also have celestial issues that are about to take place in conjunction with the volcanoes. So that's going to make it, twice as bad.
Let's talk about this. We'll talk about the celestial issues in a moment. So La Palma, the Canary Islands, the volcanic eruption update for today: increased volcanic activity with more ash and gas. I'm showing some pictures here of somewhere areas where the lava has reached the ocean. So, of course, hydrochloric acid, very dangerous, but it's also causing the air to be toxic, even if you're not, is this the smoke and everything coming from a volcano? There's a lot of different gases that actually come from volcanoes. Is that right?
Yeah. And you know what, Pascal? One volcanic eruption puts out more carbon emissions than human beings do with all their equipment. One volcano in a week puts out more carbon emissions than we put out in 200 years or something like that. So just think about that. That means if you took what they said about carbon emissions, right?
Yeah.
If you really took that to heart and began to do the mathematics behind it, you would know that within another 4 months, we're going to have a heavier atmosphere. Within 4 months, it's going to be much heavier than what it is right now. And what that means is the storms are going to be highly condensed, right? That also means the wind speeds are about to increase, because the lower the atmosphere, the higher the wind speeds, right? It also means that the oceans are going to become, well, let's just say unhinged. One effect of a lower atmosphere are outlandish and outrageous waves. You're looking in the wintertime at a type hurricane in the wintertime, right? Okay. You're looking at typhoons in near America and hurricanes near Japan. You're looking at a reversal of a few systems, but with much greater intensity. So the weather is going to be man's worst enemy. They're going to try. They're doing it now. They're trying right now to mitigate what's about to happen with the high winds. They know the high winds are coming. They've got the best scientists on the job to see what they can do to the atmosphere to slow the wind speeds down. They're not going to be successful. Hopefully, they won't tamper with it, because they can make it much worse in certain areas. But they're going to do everything they can to try and mitigate the weather phenomenon that's coming. Not to mention, with more particulates in the atmosphere, you have a transfer of electrons that takes place. Like, you're talking about lightning, right? Just lightning all over the skies for no reason, right? Right. So that means on a clear day, there's going to be more death from lightning. I don't know if anybody has checked the stats yet, but this year more people have died from lightning than ever in history. Ever in recorded history, more people have died from lightning. And the numbers are just escalating. Pretty soon, we're going to have the same people that die or that are hit by drunk drivers. It's those who are hit by lightning, that's going to be an equivalent number.
What?
So you're looking at something pretty bad here.
I mean, so you're saying that the lightning strikes, because the old saying is, you got a better chance of being hit by lightning than this. You're saying, no. It's going to get so bad that there's an equal chance of getting hit by a drunk driver than getting hit and getting hit by lightning. It'll be pretty well about the same.
Fastball, that means almost continuous strikes. You got to remember, as these volcanoes going off, they're spewing particulates in the upper atmosphere. In the atmosphere, they get caught in the jet stream. They become a part of our weather systems. But they also increase static electricity. They also increase the transfer of electrons from one concentrated place to another. There are 3 places on Earth where there's continual lightning. Those areas are beginning to change. If for example, if one of those areas were over the U.S. or over Europe, then we'd have tens of thousands of people being struck by lightning every single day. That would be outrageous. And although it seems like something out of sci-fi, well, we're just at that time where Earth changes. It's going to alter. Weather's going to alter in the worst way. This winter, a lot of climatologists are beginning to study some of the models that are coming out from DARPA, from other agencies, because they know what they're about to face. They're going to have a whole new vocabulary. If we make it through this winter, they're going to have a whole new vocabulary coming this winter. They've got the worst job to do is to explain away some of the wild events people will see. Everybody's heard of a dust devil, right?
Yes, I've seen them. I've seen those. Yeah.
Do people? I don't think people are aware of this, but this year, hundreds died from dust devils. Children have been swooped up from dust devils.
What?
Right? These are just dust devils. And so there have been injuries, massive injuries from dust devils, because now dust devils are not so docile like they used to be. Also because of these volcanoes, it's a lot of heat coming off these volcanoes causing vortices to form where they shouldn't. So we have weather really gone wild, for lack of better terms. And, that's just the beginning, because we're dealing with more compression on our atmosphere. And that's just the atmospheric problems. We still haven't dealt with the ocean yet, and the water event that will surely come.
Folks, Mike Around the World's with us tonight. Has doomsday arrived? And what I mean by that, the realization that, and it's not doomsday for Christians, but it is a darkness, a thick darkness, a gloominess. I mean, I can tell you that the things that the scripture says is coming of the day of the Lord. Well, you start to wonder, one day with the Lord's 1,000 years, 1,000 years a day. You start asking yourself question, have we entered into that doomsday effect that the world would you say it, Mike?
Pastor Rafi, I tell you what, we're certainly we're in a process. I think of the one scripture I have across my office walls. The Lord said, "There's no good thing in the day of the Lord. There's nothing good in the day of the Lord."
It does say that.
He says only a fool would ask for the day of the Lord.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
And then it rains on the just as well as the unjust. So all of us, you know what that means? Though it means that here's what I think it means. I think all of us are prone to it, but the redeemed will be shielded from it.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
Yes.
All of us are prone to it, which means these are certainly not the days to play around with your salvation. I guess that's one of my major things there. People toy around with salvation because all too often, sometimes we get so involved in ourselves, we forget a balance sometimes. But the Lord is just to give us reminders. And for the most part, we've seen reminders. We haven't seen Sirius yet, right? But we're about to.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine these conditions? About possibly 120% more than what we have with disrupted or intermittent communication. I believe we'll have continuous communication. I believe that, but it's going to be intermittent. Now you throw in a few meteor showers that no one has experienced. In modern times, no one has experienced that, where cities are truly on fire, right?
Yep.
That's going to be the difference. Oh, and not to mention, the sinkhole issue. I know I've been saying this too, but we're going to see city-sized sinkholes. And some clever producers got a hold of this. I believe they did, Pastor, a long time ago from the show.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to psychologically move people away from this idea that it could happen. But too bad. California is already beginning. California is already seeing a type of sinkhole form. A city-sized sinkhole is forming there. Several other states are now starting to move around. I hope everybody can see this. I said it on Pastor Paul said this a couple days ago. I'm going to say it again. The earthquakes in America form a perfect line, a predictive line, right? And I hope that people can see this and understand that, because it's not finished yet. I'll just say that it's not finished. Now, when you see on the USGS points that plot a perfect line or a perfect arc, because they like to alter things every once in a while, a perfect arc, it still means these are predefined positions, right?
Yeah.
Those are predefined. They're not random. And when they go back the opposite direction, on the same track, we have a problem. We have another problem, right? So we're just beginning to see some things here. Not only the USA, you're also looking at Europe big time, because they have some unexposed things that are happening there. And my goodness, just
sounds to me
a lot is going to come forward.
Sounds like the beginning of sorrows. I mean, and so let's talk about the celestial events that are coming. Okay, let's talk about that. Okay, folks. So you can see that we got the earthquakes, and all the hurricanes and tsunamis and typhoons and cyclones, and the straight line winds have gotten worse, and the climate chaos that's happening, and all these rain bombs. I mean, we could go on and on. And matter of fact, just one last thing to say about the volcano in the Canary Islands. Let me just read one comment just made today, that the volcano at the La Palma Canary Islands has increased its eruptive power. It's emitting a greater amount of ash when its lava flow reached the sea on Tuesday night. So it's even worse than it was Tuesday night. Explosions are now being registered in the north slope of the main cinder cone. This new situation could cause the cone to collapse in a very short time. So it's coming apart, isn't it? It's crumbling and coming apart at the very top of this thing.
It will. It's being fed. Of course, if it does, it's going to cause. It's going to shift a lot of water. It will,
and that could cause that. Could it cause that?
But I'll tell you something.
Okay.
If it continues to increase, it's being fed. And if it's being fed, then Mexico better watch out. They really better watch out. They have about 28 volcanoes that are not showing, that have not blown up yet. And I'm telling you right now that there's some heat plumes detected underneath Mexico that would blow your mind. And they are, if these volcanoes continue to receive this activity, they're going, I give Mexico maybe 2 weeks, they're going to have an eruption. They're going to have to deal with it. And
you're giving it maybe two weeks.
I give it a couple weeks. They're going to have to deal with an eruption. These heat plumes they can see those from space, by the way. They can see what's about to go and what's not about to go based on those heat plumes.
With some kind of ultraviolet or some kind of infrared.
It's some simple analysis, really. They have a network of satellites that monitor the surface of the Earth. They just sent another one up that looks at a different spectrum, but they can see the heat changes on the surface of the Earth. They can also look inside the Earth. They can look right through the crust and go down at least, I'd say about 3 or 4 miles. Audibly, they can go down hundreds of miles in the Earth and see perfectly. So, it's just a lot of things people don't know. They just don't know. But people can see things very well in the Earth, and I'm telling you now, the picture, this nonchalant picture they're maintaining on the surface, like everything is okay, these are normal conditions. No, they're not. They're not normal, and they're about to build up far beyond the point where we're at now. We're a boiling pot, and it's not even boiling yet.
8,800 of you. I want to welcome you tonight. Mike from the World's with us. We're live on the air. And say, Mike, as you talk about the Canary Islands and the lightning, the spectacular danger now with the thunder, lightning, and of course we're hearing that the darkness, the danger of the ash and the toxic carbon.
It's going to spread.
It's going to spread. It's going to become more and more dangerous for the lungs of people.
It's going to spread.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we know that this happened in Hawaii. So this is right in the middle of this whole ring of fire. Is this just par for the course, or is there anything here we should be concerned about in Hawaii, Kilauea?
Well, you've been having a lot of earthquakes in Alaska in conjunction with the Sandwich Islands. Remember that teeter-totter type eruption thing it was giving, right?
Yes.
So, Alaska would erupt, Sandwich Islands would erupt, Alaska would erupt, so on and so forth. Now, that shows a relationship, right, in pressures. Clearly a relationship in pressures. Both areas have built up magma underneath them. Alaska's heated up so much, it's severely hot to where it's exposed some black projects up there already, right? In some places where it's not supposed to be hot, you have a melt-away happening, and they're going to be forced to get out of, they're going to bring some special teams outside of a base there because the ice is not covering it up. That will expose enough within itself. In Alaska, if they receive more quakes, that means the magma is trying to find a way out, and it will. It will eventually. They have volcanic activity. That's not really new. That's why the earthquakes are, they really give an insight into some of the changes that are taking place. And if you start to look at Alaska and the places that have heated up, it's very unusual. It's never happened before. Never happened before. So, in fact, the military counted on parts of Alaska being frozen for a long time. They're not frozen, Pastor Paul. They're thawing out. Everything is thawing out.
Is it because the magma is rising or eating away the core? Is the core expanding, Mike?
Yeah. The Earth constantly takes in radiation on a continuous basis. Right?
Yeah, that's externally.
The solar winds of the sun are absorbed by the Earth.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
The solar winds have increased as far as their density. They have increased. That means you can have slow solar winds, but the greater density means we're taking on twice as much as what we usually did. Now, one of the telltale signs is when the aurora stretches all the way down to America. When they see the aurora in Mexico, all right. When they really see it clearly in Nebraska, that's going to be a danger sign.
Are you serious?
People will say it's beautiful every evening. It's going to be a danger sign. When the skies are colorful, that's a danger sign. And that will no doubt take place because those auroras, right, are the result of upper atmosphere high-speed collisions. That's what they are. High-speed particles are coming in from space, hitting some of the particles that travel the magnetic field lines of the Earth. And when they explode, they cause colors. If it hits nitrogen, it's one color. If it hits oxygen, it's another color. If it hits, hydrogen, another color, so on and so forth. So these colorful skies seen over America, that's not going to be a good sign. That means the entire magnetosphere is overloaded, is transferring too much radiation in certain areas, and that's just not a good sign.
All right, Mike, let's talk about a couple other things. Let's talk about that celestial. Before we go to the celestial threat to the Earth, I want to ask you a couple questions. About 17,000 Haitians or so made it in the United States. We saw the situation under the bridge, and it was very concerning. We understand now there's another 12,000 Haitians that are working their way up through Guatemala. They're getting ready to come into Mexico. I'm hearing as many as 60,000. That's a rumor. I don't have that confirmed. Could be also coming behind them. Apparently, somebody's bringing them on boats to Panama. That's a lot of money to move that many people. Who's doing it? Who's paying for that? Who's doing that?
Fastball, check that situation out. I want to say this. Here's what's so bad about this entire situation.
Okay.
You have folks over there who you just can't jump into another country and be accepted, right?
No.
And I'm not a political guy. I don't take sides.
No.
But when you do not tell folks, listen, you just can't come to America, you're hurting the families coming over here. Here's what happens. These folks are spending all of their money to get a boat ride and transportation over here. There are always people willing to take that money and get them as far as they can. A lot of them, they only have $800 to their name with children, right? So they take all that money, get a boat ride, because no one in this administration has told them, don't come over here, right? So they all get hopeful. Right.
Yeah,
this is the bad part. They get hopeful, and Christians are well aware of this situation because every single believer has gone through this. They get hopeful and they say, yes, this is it. We can finally, do something. They get over here. They get stopped. They wait. They become part of some political game. Yeah. And the families are most often destroyed because they're fractured. Right? They get split up, all sorts of things. They get in trouble in Mexico. These cartels trying to get to them, whatever the case is. But they get over here and their hopes are broken, right? I know for a fact that some of the ones that made it into the country and they shouldn't have are saying, this is not the way I wanted to come in here, right? This is not what I thought would happen. And they're separated from children and everything else. For the most part, most of these guys are sent back the other direction. For example, the day before they went missing, 9 aircraft left the U.S. But see, that still cost us money. That costs money that we could be giving to the people that live over here. And a responsible government needs to say, the borders are shut. The only way in here, right, is through proper channels. So you don't give a person false hope. The problem I have with it is they give people false hope.
Yes.
And when you tell somebody, hey, this may work out for you, and they get all excited, get over here, and it does not. You're hurting people.
No, I know.
You're really hurting people.
Terrible.
And that's just not humane. That's not humane at all. So, that's my issue with that.
It's mine also, and I don't know why we would encourage that. I feel I have more compassion for these people because I know they're desperate and they're doing anything they can to make life better, to raise a family. You got to get out of, to run from a country and face these incredible odds of danger. It must be horrible where you're leaving. So I'm with you, Mike, on this 1,000%. It's awful. Let me ask you this question. This week, nurses were fired in New York. I don't want to talk about the V word. We're not even allowed to talk about it. So let's just keep it in the perspective of what's going on here. Nurses are being fired. Police are being defunded and let go. First responders are being fired. These are the people that if we ever have a catastrophe here, we need them like never before. And while that's happening, Mike, we got 500,000 containers of food and products setting off the coast of Los Angeles on cargo ships that can't be unloaded while we're having food shortages. Supply chains are falling apart. Farmers are not planting as many crops because there's nowhere to go with them because there's not enough food processing plants because those closed due to the mandates. Mike, it feels like that we're in the most vulnerable position we've been as a nation. Can you reflect? Is there a plan going on here, or what's happening?
You're looking at, it's the same atmosphere within small municipals, your local towns, cities, what have you. People are so passionate. They're still so polarized. You have these folks. Now, I'm going to say it in a different way. You have these folks that want to mandate something, right?
Yeah.
They want to mandate something. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. They want to mandate because they want to be right. And because they listen, if they get their mandate over, they win, right? Now, you have the other side, which is rightfully saying you can't mandate anything like that. No matter what the outcome is, you can't mandate that. Here's why that's so bad. In this country, Pastor Paul, there have been fights and scrimmages and things that more fights, but look at the outcome. We enjoy the outcome, which means when we have problems like this, right? Yep. In today's modern world, we don't fight them out on the backs of citizens. Right? You fight this stuff out for the benefit of everybody, which means one of the mistakes they have made was when two parents are in a home, you don't argue in front of your child.
No.
The child didn't ask to be here, so you go somewhere else and you have that conversation. So the child opened up to the world arguments that the world, they don't want to hear that stuff because if they hear it, they're going to have to deal with it. And if they have to deal with it, they're going to end up taking control of it, picking a side. It's just going to cause more division. They know exactly what they were doing. And so what they're doing is trying to mandate. The problem with these mandates is if they get the mandate, they push this stuff through, they win. They win. That's it. Now, listen, when you have something like this happening, it's not about saving lives. It's about being right. They want to be right, right? So that's a no-go, though. So you have a problem there. The other portion of that is because they want to be right. They're willing to sacrifice other things so they can be right. It's harder on the other side. They're willing to do. And these little battles these internal battles have turned, and we're the victims, right? We're going to pay the price. That food that's setting off the coast, it's already bad. Listen, they had to slow down well before they ever got here, right? Because there was a dispute whether or not to let them in a specific zone. They already stopped once, and they had to, come in so that whatever's on those containers is probably not
edible.
That stuff.
It won't be edible.
Because it's already too big. You can't take a cargo ship full of perishables and slow down halfway through the trip and then go full steam again, then slow down again because somebody's having an argument. So the problem here, these internal fights have happened, which means they're so divisive, so angry, and so taken over. They don't care the price you pay. And what they normally do, if everybody should take note that they normally will have these little skirmishes, right? And then what we consume in our lives degrade throughout the process. It degrades. If we get too involved in their junk, our lives degrade all the way. There's no solution out of it. And then we end up with whoever the last person is left, they push things through anyway. I can say this, and this is why I continue to say, Pastor Paul, an element will rise and push all of that stuff out. And it won't come. It's not coming from some elected source. It's coming directly from the people. And it's that's an issue for them. Nevertheless, it's happening every single day.
Amen.
When you have 2 million military individuals, career officers, career enlisted, high enlisted individuals, when you have those individuals and they tender the resignation, something is wrong. And we're not talking about individuals who are who are divided by politics. We're talking about people who care about this country. Something is wrong. And so, they're facing a lot of that. But Pastor Paul, I can also tell you this, that there are people who sit around tables and they say, well, how are we going to get rid of people? Right? How are we going to make it so everybody can eat, so everybody can do this and everybody can do that? And to be honest with you, and it shouldn't be a secret now, but there's a mandate every single term to keep the population to a specific minimum, whether by abortion, whether by certain diseases not being treated, whatever the case is, right? But people recognize this, like take, for example, high blood pressure, sugar diabetes. Why is it so prominent in America, but only in specific places? Why? I'll tell you why. That's population control, period. That's been going on since, that's been going on for a long time, since they, kind of kicked Kennedy out. And that's the exact stuff Kennedy was going to expose. Those type things had nothing to do with what most people think, but he was going to tell the people, you have to take your country back. And then, of course, he never got to get that message out, did he?
No.
But ever since that time, these diseases have been coming up, and it shouldn't be a mystery because they got they were testing things on certain people back during that same time through mosquitoes, and people were dying. Some of the diseases that people are dealing with now, they began back then. These are created diseases, not natural diseases, and people are dealing with it right now. They just don't know it was a disease created in a laboratory. They don't know that. So just like today, we're fighting a disease today, which certainly can be fought, but you can't force people through this militant type of remedy, right? That because they're forgetting about the natural course of the body. Your body knows how to fight everything out there. Your body does. It knows how to fight everything out there. And the truth be told, anyway, you're going to have some people that will comply and some people who won't.
Right.
If those who will comply went ahead and complied, right, then guess what would happen? The disease would change. It would change in a way where it would weaken itself, likely go dormant. Nobody would have to deal with it anyway. And all of those who weren't forced, their immune systems would alter being around those who have already changed. That's humanity as a whole. If you have half of it immune to something, that can actually transfer to those who have had no type of anything. All right.
Mike, can you turn your volume up? Can you?
Is it going down?
Well, it sounds very low. I'm trying to see if I can find I have another little thing here.
What about now? How do we sound now?
You're coming up
still
now.
low?
No, you're coming up now.
It's okay.
Okay.
Maybe it was a conversation.
Well, you never know. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about now the threat from the sky that you're talking about. The threat from the sky.
Oh boy.
So, okay, I think you've done a great job describing the magma, the volcanoes, the effect we're having on the planet. But now let's talk about the effects coming from exterior and inbound. Where are we today?
Well, Pastor Paul, all of us, we understand what they call global warming, right? The difference is all planets are going through it. All of them are. So we certainly have external effects on the entire solar system. Everything is heating up. We also have these gigantic, here's a term that you're going to hear more and more. You guys ready for this? Super asteroids. You're going to hear that word, super asteroids, and super comets. You're going to hear those words. And what that means is people are now conveying to other folks, hey, we discovered something back in 2009 or 2010 that we could potentially have to deal with that has altered its orbit, right? Now, as of yet, we've been getting objects from a very specific part of the sky. Most of the big ones come from that direction anyway. We've not had one that just cracked right through the Kuiper Belt, and came and got us yet. We haven't had that, but we're about to have those. And it only takes one to dislodge all of those rocks, right? Then it becomes like a pool table. We're going to see that event. that's going to be a disaster within itself, because what will happen is, as they continue to dislodge, some will be ejected in towards the inner solar system. We're going to have to deal with that. The other problem is that we can only see a specific part of space at any given time. The problem now is the activity level out there in space is so high, it's just not enough, which is why you have every single country scrambling to find the best solution, right? They know they're going to have to deal with it. They're not holding back. They know.
Okay, when you say that, are you when they have to
tell them?
When you say they have to,
like the movies.
Okay,
right?
but when you say they have to deal with it, was part of their plan the underground cities? The underground, was that the first attempt to how to deal with it, and then have they evolved into something else?
Well, the underground base issue, that came from what was already here. What they did in Germany got the idea, right? Germany got the idea from what was already in Germany. They found 2 underground cities in Germany. They inspected those places, which led them to India. In India, they found several more, right? They went very deep. They dug up a lot of things in the sands of everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The Germans found a lot. This was before 1930, okay?
Okay.
They found quite a bit. So Germany became the experts on building underground facilities. Well, after World War II, we gave amnesty to all their scientists. They came over here and began to build underground cities here too.
Right.
Except then we started finding that the USA already had underground cities, everywhere. So here, this is their mindset. If it protected these guys, because they absolutely believe in the Book of Noah, right? They do. They believe in the Book of Noah. I know people aren't familiar with that. The King James Version is enough. It's the same story. The flood came. So they knew about that, and they said, okay, that was enough to protect him. They also know about the iridium layer. They also know about the timing of the iridium layer not being what's in your textbooks. So they know that something hit the earth and people sought protection. They know the Mayan story. They know all the Native American stories, because all of them Native Americans corroborated their story with all the first settlers that came over here. So that was common. They went underground and stayed there for many years with the ant people and popped back up after all this stuff was done. That's a common story with all the Native Americans. But they found the places, Pastor Paul. They found the places. So
who's the ant people? Wait a minute. You can't just throw that out there. Who's the ant people crawling around? Who are they?
Well, that was a story of some things that were already down there. They called them the ant people. They depicted these ant people and several cultures, several Native American cultures on stone. All of them are engraved in stone, right? But not only there, but they're also in Australia. They're also in South America, the exact same figures. So a lot of people all over the earth went underground with the ant people, right? Especially in Turkey. They have the exact same carvings in Turkey. Right? Same language, evidently. Now, what are the ant people? Well, here's a short story from the way I understand it. A long time ago, in the time of the Nephilim, right?
Okay.
There was an assault from the heavens upon the Nephilim, which destroyed their cities directly from God. In order to escape that, some of the smaller Nephilim went down underneath the ground and established cities. And there's of which 4 kings are still here on this earth right now from a long time ago. I know it sounds like science fiction. I'm just throwing that out there. One is in South America right now, and I think once or twice a year, they can approach this thing, which is sleeping, and they can ask it questions, and it will give an answer. I think South America has one, North America, we have one, Europe has one. In the Middle East, there's one in the Middle East, 2 in the Middle East. One is in Iran, sleeping. The other one's in, I think, Turkey. If I'm not mistaken, I think Turkey. Anyway, so these folks inhabited these underground dwellings, and there are plenty of names for them, but they all have the same exact structure, the same. And in modern times, we would call them demons, right?
Right.
Because they still take children. right?
Oh.
You wouldn't realize how many children are found in the middle of the desert, which are around the ages of 10 years old, but they have like a 7-year-old mind or something. They don't know where they came from, what their name is. They don't know anything. They tell you the same story, no matter where they're found in the world. They say the exact same story. Now, I know that sounds strange, but you guys will probably hear this in the near future. So it won't be new to you. Anyway, so they went down there. They stayed there. Now, during these strikes of comets and everything else where everything was burning up top, they were protected deep within the layers of the earth.
Okay.
And everybody knows that the temperature, when you go down in the earth, the temperature is pretty steady no matter how hot it is above the earth.
Yeah, about 50.
So they had some sustained places down there.
54 degrees or
built
something.
upon that same, mindset that, it's more stability down there.
Okay.
And if we had a meteor impact, now, ironically, underground bases do not work against floods.
No.
So they're not expecting a flood. Underground bases, they work against meteor strikes and things like that. Fires, massive fires. Well, predominantly
So now-
avoid meteor strikes.
Okay,
not
so now your
nuclear
point,
weapons, meteor strikes.
you're a flood because they believe the Bible. Okay, so but
That's
they
right.
are anticipating deep impacts, fire from above, raging fires on the earth, air that's poisoned and not good, water that's poisoned.
right.
So you're saying for about the last 100 years, we've been trying to perfect the underground city concept. And I say we, I'm not meaning just America, but major countries of the world.
Yeah.
But because we found out that past civilizations had already moved into this direction.
That's right.
And is it because Planet X, is that anywhere in the equation here? Or is it
The destroyer.
the
They call it
destroyer?
Destroyer. The destroyer, which, by the way, is very odd. And this is one of the a lot of people out there, they know this story from Zechariah Ascension.
Yes.
Pastor Paul, but do you know the destroyer is documented as being something that's not like any other star you would ever see. Also, when these guys, some of the old remnants of the folks who encountered the destroyer, all of a sudden they stopped believing in all their gods and told their children and future generations to search out the one true God, that he may have mercy at the time of its arrival again, because they said, we're going to deal with it again, and it's going to be out of the minds. But the ironic part is, how can all these civilizations say the same thing? They said men will be as women, women will be as men. Right?
Yep.
That people will be speaking with speaking stones across the oceans. That men would fly in the air as birds and swim the seas as fish and great iron fish. All these different things that we're saying, depicting they also said a web would cover the world. A web would cover the world. And it's so funny that we deal with a World Wide Web. And it connects one person to the other. They describe railroad tracks, iron, what they call them, iron honeycomb or something like that will be all across the earth and men would travel on it. They describe the stone cities. They said, but they did say all the stone cities will be a smoke and everybody will flee the stone cities because of the fire. Instant fire. Columns of smoke would be seen as far as the eye can see coming off every stone city. They describe some stuff. They describe the age of when a bunch of religions would be on the earth, when a bunch of science would be on the earth, and then the science would go away and give way to mysticism again. They described all these errors that would come and go because they said, man, just like a baby, man is in the womb, right?
Yeah.
And you have all these trimesters. Well, they said mankind over generations is just like that baby. A few generations, they learn steel and this, that, and the other. Another generation, they learn to work, metals and wood. And after that generation, they learn about the elements, the higher elements, and they had it all depicted perfectly. And if it were just written on paper in some book, that would be one thing. When it's etched in stone that they just got to, right?
Yeah.
In 2020, that's a different story.
Yeah.
When you keep finding evidence for these writings being absolutely old, and we're talking real old,
Yeah.
right?
And they're
Like
prophetic.
the city below Samaria.
I mean,
the Sumerians were not the oldest civilization. They've known this for 52 years now. There are cities below those cities that they found. So the Sumerian text is based on another text. It's based, and they were all telling the same exact story.
So, Mike,
they had
you're
the
saying
ages messed up, but they you know.
Yeah, I mean, so they're telling us about the coming of Planet X again. They're telling us, but prophetically, as you were naming there, they were talking about how mankind would evolve, and they prophetically could see into the ahead of up to our very present day the things that would be going on, you know. And so God was speaking to people. He was revealing to them. And of course, they were always saying, go find and seek out the one true living God. They knew there had to be, because you can't have everything we have. You can't look into heavens and look at the stars. You cannot follow the constellations and the rotation of Earth around the sun and the moon and everything else that goes on without realizing there's somebody designed this all. It's too perfect. It's too beautiful.
They said they found out too late, Pastor Paul, that they made a great error, and they were hoping their grandkids would really, have the truth. And they also said that they knew the knowledge would be lost, but that they would erect monuments that would help the wise find the information again and be prepared. They also had one phrase, and if it could be translated, it goes just like this. It says, forsake earthly goods and save the soul.
Sounds biblical. That sounds pretty biblical, to be honest.
Each one. Well, they turned, that's just like the Hopi Indians, the Mayans, right? The Mayans, you know what they just discovered in some of the Mayan temples that in January they didn't really want to release, and it was their doom. They were supposed to reign 1,000 years. And then they found this writing where they started believing in Yahweh. It specifically says, translates into Yahweh, where they found out that they were in error too. So some of these older stories are being picked up, right? As they dig deeper, they find more truth. And, it's too sad, but some of the survivors found that ultimate truth. But most of their people did not make it, of course. But we know that.
Well, now let me ask you something. Heidi has a question for you. And I forgot to, I actually slipped my mind how to say it. But I said earlier that, look, we got containers of food out in the ocean. We've got nurses, police, first responders, everything being let go. We have a southern border that's really very porous and confusing. Food prices are rising, oil prices, natural gas. Look at Europe. It's not just America now. This is a global problem. Disease, plagues, sicknesses, wars, rumors of wars, world economy unstable, divided nations, and it's all happening at once. She said, how can this timing, is there a reason for the timing for just about everything that could go wrong or is headed in the wrong direction? The timing is now. Is there a reason? She said, ask Mike, is there a reason? Is there a master plan? Is there a reason?
Well, let me give you there is a reason. Let me give you a small hint.
Okay.
The economy has to be transformed into another system.
Okay.
The only way for people to truly embrace a new system is that the old one completely failed them.
Yep.
That's the only way, right? So there is another system already erected. Elon Musk is going to head up part of the division of getting people used to digital currency.
Yep.
Elon Musk will. So he should come out with some, news about something dealing with some new currency. But everybody will see. Sadly, most of these things are planned out. The saddest part is this, that often the populace fulfills the script that's already written. And this is something that, I would just love for people not to do. In other words, don't fall into the trap presented to you. Think outside the box, step back and see what's really happening, right? If I could give one word of advice, it would be this. If we could not be involved into the dubious doings of these individuals that govern the world and take a step back and fully be in Christ, we see it all. And that we'd never be moved by what we see on television, but we would be those who cause results to happen, because we're about to enter into a season where life is lost. It's really going to be lost. And Christians are the ones who will make the difference. Nobody else is going to make the difference. Christians will make the difference. We're the representatives, right? All the kingdoms are going to be given over to the saints.
Yep.
The kingdoms will be given to the saints. So the saints have an extremely important job to do right now, which is why Satan is probably attacking he's attacking everything he can do to make it feel like you're doing nothing. Let me tell you something. If you're a Christian and you so much as speak a small, tiny 2-word prayer, it does more than the average person can do most of their lives. So whatever you say, whatever you do, it means everything. Just stand on Christ and don't listen to Satan, which says you don't matter. That's not what the Lord told you. The Lord didn't. And by the way, all this stuff happening is not against you. It's for you. It is specifically for you to move some things out of the way that you will not be. You're just not going to have these roadblocks anymore. People won't believe what you're saying about the end times. When their house is burning up because a meteor slammed into it, they're going to come to you and say, how can I be protected? It'd be a good time for you to tell them about Christ.
Yes.
Because at that time, they'll be ready to receive. When waters are on their front porch after they said no water's going to come anywhere.
Right.
It'd be a good time for you to talk about the everlasting water of the Lamb, right? The water of life. The Lord's going to open up these doors. He'll protect us as we walk in Him. So the key is learn to walk in Him now. Learn everything you can of Him now. When that time comes, you'll be a laborer.
You just said it, Mike. Don't walk in fear. Walk in the faith. Walk in the Spirit. Walk with Christ. And when these things begin to happen around, people are going to be asking you, all right, I'm starting to see I'm seeing the picture now. There really is a last days. There really is. What do I need to do to be saved? Or what do I need to do to protect myself? Or what do I need to do to get right with God? And so you're saying we got to keep ourselves not walking around living in the same fear that they're in, but stay protected in Christ. Stay confident in God's word and His precious promises to all of us. And Mike, I thank you tonight, and I want to say this right now. This is the largest crowd at one time ever to be listening to a broadcast, over 9,300 people. And Mike, I'm just going to say thank you for really doing a great job explaining a lot of this in the context of the timing is we're in the end days. Things are happening beyond maybe even man's ability to think out, to even participate in it. It's like it's bigger, but you're right. They're trying to do some type of a new monetary reset, some type of new culture, new digital can be controlled by the powers that be, and people need to be ready. Jesus is coming. Told us to keep looking up. Our redemption draws nigh. Mike,
amen.
What are you going to tell us next week? I mean, is there anything that we didn't get to that you think we might need to talk about next week?
Well, I think the Sand King's deputy is going to make his political move this week coming up.
The Sand King's deputy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it next week.
All right.
All right. I have no idea what the Sands King deputy is, folks, but that's what to be watching for. And again, I am so sorry my computer wanted to update right at the beginning. But I thank y'all for staying on, tuning in, and being a part. I really do, because, wow, what an outstanding broadcast that we have had. And I'm very thankful that Brother Pat has been on the show. I'm thankful that y'all got the opportunity to listen. And for those of y'all that missed the whole front half of the show, I greatly apologize. I'll get a link sent out to y'all where y'all can listen to it in its entirety. You need to hear Pat, man. He did such an awesome job. But as we can tell, man, Mike's been dead on for the last couple of weeks. He's been telling us to watch the Canary Islands, and then there you go, the Canary Islands, they go up. Then he told us last week to be watching the area of Italy and Greece and that area up through there, and sure enough, 2 days after our show, Crete had a major earthquake, 7.0. Turkey had an earthquake, 7.0. So I don't know who Mike is, but he is definitely in the know as to these earth changes and the things that are going on. And again, that interview that you just heard happened on Thursday night, and that show ended 1 hour before the meteor blew up over Ashland City and the Nashville area here. And then the very next morning, they had another one come over Panama City and blow up. So, folks, the stragglers are coming in. You know, Mike, when Paul asked Mike, when do you think these things will happen? He said, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't start coming in right around October. And that one in Nashville came in an hour and a half before October. So you can't get any better than that. And again, you know, we're not to trust any man. But with what Pat and I shared earlier, man, it's a lot of stuff coming. Special prayers for my mom. Again, she had to go to the hospital, had a little heart issue, got that corrected. She's home. But her brother, my Uncle Jim, he's got COVID. He's having complications. So he's in the hospital too and needs special prayers for him as well. So appreciate y'all hanging in there with me, folks. You know, I'm not a professional. Sometimes these things happen, but we got the show done, and I'll send y'all all the link of the one in the entirety. So next week I will not be doing a show because I'll be on vacation next weekend. However, that one interview with Mike that I promised y'all, where he's just by himself talking about these gamma rays and what they're going to do as they start coming in. That is a fabulous one. I'll just go ahead and record that one for you and put that in place of Saturday's show for you. That way you'll have something to listen to and outstanding information. So, yeah, as we can see, folks, a lot of things are happening. And I'm going to go back now and edit out our flub up of the beginning so that when you hear the podcast, it'll sound normal. All right, friends, Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Smokehouse. To talk with Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial the access code 252.